Well, hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 in this Black Sails rewatch, where me and my amazing esteemed co-host Kyle Entertainment are rewatching Black Sails. So say
I
something,
was
Kyle.
gonna say esteem, then you
Yes,
took it from me.
it's
So now
yeah.
what the fuck am I supposed to say?
Say whatever
Hey, you
you
don't say
want.
fuck in the first 60
You're
seconds.
gonna get me
Now it's gonna be
demonetized.
monetized.
God,
How many subs does the second channel have?
like 80.
Well, we're a little bit away from monetization then. But here we are again to talk more talk about Black Sails. How excited am I? How excited is thee? We're very excited to be here.
What a show!
Still, Ari's the only person I've ever got to talk to this about this show to with. We're off to a great start with me and my words.
Yep.
So I'm excited as always, and we're back with season 2. I guess I shouldn't say what I think about it yet, because we're not up to that part. We're just doing
Yes.
introductions. But
Okay, so
indeed.
in season 2, because I'm sure everyone watching this is like, I don't remember what happened in season 2, so let me tell you exactly what happened. And generally a
I
lot
remembered
happens.
exactly.
Really, I certainly
Remember
didn't.
last time? Hold on. Remember last time when you were like, "What's Charlestown? When did they go
Yeah,
to Charlestown
that's
and
crazy.
blow up a city?"
You wouldn't
What?
believe how much I forgot. Which made a great
Jesus
experience. I
Christ.
felt like I was watching for the first time at some points, which was great. But in terms of what happens, we get some stuff with Ned Lowe, who's a guy with a scarred eye, or who's like blind in one eye. We get Flint and Hornigold trying to get the fort back from Vane. We get a bunch of flashbacks. So this season is a bunch of flashbacks, basically, about Flint, Thomas, and Miranda. We sail to Charlestown to deliver Abigail to her dad, Lord Peter Ashe. We get Vane saving Flint from execution at Charlestown. And then we also get a bunch of other stuff throughout the season. So we get Jack getting a crew. We get Anne figuring out who she is and like what she wants in life. We get Max getting a bunch of power over time. And we get Eleanor betraying Vane and getting kidnapped and exchanged for pardons. And the season ends with Jack showing up with the Urka gold and showing it to Max. So, and a lot more stuff.
What?
But that's the season.
What a great bunch of bullshit that was. Goodness gracious me.
Yes.
The thing to say. Oh, first of all, my video also came out since then. I didn't think it would, but it has come out. So, and on that video, if we're getting into overall thoughts, which I think we are, remember in that video where I was like, man, season 1, fuck season 1. This season 1 shit was trash. Season 2 is where it's at. Greatest season of TV I ever saw in my life. What a season this was to rewatch. It's funny you say that you'd forgotten most of this. I think I remember season 2 the best. Like I even remember mostly like the episode structure. Like I knew 5 was 5, and then I knew what happened in the last 2. And episode 8, I knew it started with I don't know if it ends, but it starts with the Abigail diary entries, and she's like reading it throughout and stuff like that. So I remembered a lot of this stuff. More so than I'd say for season 3 and 4. But we'll see when we get there. But what a fucking... I've rallied against it, saying that season 1 is worse, but my god, was season 2 so good. I never felt like a draw against watching any episodes like I kind of do with season 1. I just wasn't as motivated to keep going. It took me a little while. This, I was blasting through it. I was ahead of Ari most of the race until he beat me. I only watched 1 episode today, right before we recorded. Well, not right before, but last time I had watched 2. What a season. Even though there's 2 more episodes, overall, it's just better in every way, I think. And I can't believe I'm one of those people now. Did I say that the flashbacks were only in the first 5 episodes, by the way?
Were they?
He said, yeah, because it ends with the...
Yeah, I guess that makes perfect sense.
Maybe in 6, there's the fallout.
The fallout?
Yeah, I think they might be in 6 too, like, oh, they get caught.
That's crazy.
But indeed. But
it certainly feels like it's always present, right?
Yeah. Well, then we're directly, like, we're interacting with characters from the flashbacks in the present with Peter.
Yep, genius.
But we'll get into all of that. But Mr. Ari, your overall thoughts?
Oh, I think I completely echo your sentiments. I thought this was fantastic.
Oh my god, I thought at the start of that sentence, I was like, oh, really? But no.
Yes, I think it's just it's so good. Like I know last time you're like, oh, what would you rate this season? And I was like, oh, maybe 9, maybe 10, but this is absolutely a 10. Like this season is just amazing. In terms of like what I've remembered, I definitely remembered episode 5.
You didn't even remember Ned Lowe. I'm remembering everything.
I didn't remember Ned Lowe. And when I saw him, I was like, yeah, I recognize this guy. And I remembered that he died.
Wait, remember now? Hold on. I'm interrupting, but that's my specialty. Remember when, after you watched episode 1, I was like, yeah, remember the girl? She's in and you didn't even realize Abigail was in episode 1, in the opening scene? I was like,
I felt pretty bad. I was like, how did I miss that? But yep, I'm a genius and I got it in the end, and here we are. What a season. I think that to me, just you can probably tell by the recap I gave, but the highlight for me is all the Flint, Miranda, like Thomas, like all that kind of stuff is awesome.
Very
like
good.
Both the flashback and the present day. Maybe even the present day is probably better, but we'll talk about it, I guess. And yeah, well, actually, I got one more note in my overall thoughts, which is something I thought of when I was watching, which is that it's really interesting to have a show filled with a bunch of capable people. Like you've got obviously you have Flint, you got Eleanor, right? These are two like really capable people. You got Max, you got Vane, you got Silver, you got Billy. Like these are all just a bunch of like people who could even carry their own show if they wanted, right? Like they're all just so capable and interesting to watch, and they all interact with each other, which is crazy. But
so by capable you mean like good, or do you mean like actually capable of achieving their goals in universe?
Yeah, no, I mean like capable as in if they were to. Like they can achieve their own goals basically. Like they can live on their own, they can survive on their own, they have their own motivations. Like they're very interesting and they can achieve stuff basically.
Yeah, I agree, but season 1 actually had some like incompetence quite a bit, right? Remember when they're doing the ship and it comes undone just because they were incompetent? And there's a few moments like that. I feel like there's a few more moments from season 1, so that's a bit of a change in season 2. But I do agree where it's like. It's not like, incompetence is not really a plot point. And I don't even dislike incompetence as a plot point in general, or even in Black Sails in season 1, but it is, I definitely feel you there.
Excellent.
What a television program.
Yep. And that's it. So, standout moments. Do you have,
Well, this is just a quick point, but I think I actually found, because I remember the Flint and Miranda stuff the most, and I remember thinking that was obviously the best stuff. Flint is obviously always in the best stuff since he's the best character. But I found myself liking all the other stuff even more this time. My growing appreciation for Vane has continued. I still like Eleanor just as much as a character, but I did definitely dislike her a little bit more towards the back end of the season than I remembered. I didn't remember that she actually did take the hit out. As it was happening, I was like, oh yeah, she did do that. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure later, even if we just talk about it in the Anne section. The Anne, Jack, and Featherstone section, and Max. They're all around. And Adele.
Yes.
What a girl she is. Anyway, standout scenes, Mr. Ari, you were transitioning to.
Yeah. Do you want me to go through my massive list of amazing standout moments? Okay. So, firstly, essentially all the flashback stuff is just the standout. Whenever there was a flashback scene, I'm like, hell yeah, okay, we're getting some more stuff. So, in particular, in those flashback things, I thought the Alfred Hamilton dinner scene was a fantastic scene. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just seeing this terrible... strict man coming in, and then Flint standing up for Miranda, and it's just so great, and so tense, because it's like this. I mean, this is like the moment that defined the rest of Flint's life, right? Like him standing up for her in that moment, and then leading to the downfall. It's just a great scene. And then also related to the flashback stuff, just the whole of the way that episode 5 handles the reveal, where it's like slowly drawn out over the whole episode, right? Like you get a few different flashbacks going on. And they're all just great. So that's another standout moment. I think particularly like in regards to that reveal, again, another one is where the scene where you've got like Flint and you got his like, I don't even know what his name is, like what he is, but he's like quote unquote dad, like that fatherly figure guy.
His commanding officer.
Yeah, like that guy, yeah. Where they're like going up the stairs and then opening the door and you see Alfred Hamilton in there, and then Flint just like doesn't know what to say and is just standing there in like shock and disbelief and is probably afraid, and I feel like that because I didn't remember it was happening here. I was like, oh, when does it happen? Is it right now? And it did happen then. And it was like, man, this is terrible. So that's probably the standout scene. And then more standout stuff. You got all the Ashe stuff in the present. What a is it really a standout at this point if it's like the whole season? But it is. So you've got Flint I think the first scene where you get Flint meeting Abigail, when I think they're in Eleanor's tavern, or it's somewhere like that looks like that.
Yeah, it's in the back. Yeah,
it's just so great. And he's coming in. It looks like he's about to cry, but he's obviously not going to. But he says, "My name is James," right? James.
Yes,
McGraw.
and the way he says, "My name is James," is like entrenched into my brain.
Yeah, it's like
this is the moment where he says, "My name is James."
Yeah,
and that's so in my brain constantly.
There's a lot of deliveries actually in this show where I remember the delivery very well for some reason. But
fires in this section.
Yes, there's so many things in this season. What else? I think the first scene we get of Ashe, where it's like Abigail goes to him in the back and you see him like half through the door, and then he like comes into the scene and he just you clearly can tell that there's a lot going on in his head. It's just really good acting and directing and everything. Another standout scene. And then the final thing in this Ashe section is Miranda's death. Amazing. We'll talk about that more. Yeah, sudden, crazy. I, as a person who completely forgot that she dies there, I was in absolute shock. I got the same reaction as like when I watched it. Probably even more of a reaction here than the first time I watched it.
See, I knew exactly when it was coming. I knew exactly the line she died in and everything.
It was so great. But yep. So other than all that, we get a bunch of Anne stuff. I thought the Anne stuff was great, but the standout stuff is that this one scene with where essentially I don't know how to describe this, but Anne is like sitting down and eating. Then Jack comes and kind of reveals that like he chose Max over her.
I didn't think you were going that way, but no.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I think that works so well. Just I don't even know if it works. I think what's special about it to me is just how Anne doesn't see it coming at all. Yeah, she just assumes. She's like, obviously he's going to choose me. And it doesn't. It's just so sad. So that's probably the standout. What were you thinking for that I was going to say?
I was thinking about the scene where she nearly becomes a prostitute and she's sitting down eating and then the dude comes out. But we'll talk a lot about that.
Yeah, we will. That was also a really great scene. The way it's directed and everything. But okay. But guess what? We have even more standout moments. Which there's two particular speeches that I liked, so I'll just briefly say which ones they are.
Only two?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of speeches and monologues, and it's crazy this season, and just this show in general, but the way you get one from Flint about, like, I'm going to rain holy hell.
Oh, how about how you didn't remember the Odysseus one that was in episode 2?
Oh, yes, and I got the storm thing wrong. It wasn't the whole episode, it was 20 minutes. Crazy.
Oh, indeed, I'm just so right about everything.
Yeah, my goodness. I couldn't believe it, how much I was wrong about in that season 1, but here we are. I mean, everything's
what
factual.
Did you just say? Because I was.
Oh, okay. Flint's speech about getting Vane out of the fort, where it's like, "Oh, so help me God, I will rain holy hell," and it's just so great. What a delivery! And then the speech at the end with Vane, I was like, "Oh, she may never be feared again. We got to get him the hell out of there." It's so great. That's one where I definitely remember the delivery of like, "Get him the hell out of there." But great, two great speeches. Okay, second to last standout thing is earlier in the season, actually, where you got Flint kind of in the... it's crazy how much happens this season. Like, the beginning feels so different from the end, but you've got Dufresne kind of telling the captain to stand down, and then you've got Flint like narrating what the captain is thinking. And he's like, he's probably thinking about how all his people have given him all these goods and he's going to give them up without fighting, and now he's seeing the black flag and realizing that there's no danger there or whatever. But great scene. And the final standout scene, we've got so many standout scenes, is right at the end where you've got, I don't know how to describe this again, but they're in Charlestown, right? And then there's this guy on the wall and he's like near the cannons and they're pointing at the ship. And then he like looks to the right, and there's like a bunch of pirates all like swarming onto this one guy. It's terrifying. And
then he appears in front of him, and it's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, great directing, great stuff. That's it. That's my like 50 standout moments of this season.
Yeah, it's interesting because you did a bunch of the bigger things, but for the standout scenes, I did a bunch of the smaller things. Because I had like 2 written down, and then today I was like, what other ones? What am I going to think of immediately when I think of this stuff? So. In episode 1, when Flint starts talking about pissy Flint was great at the beginning of episode 1, where he's just mad about everything and these fucking idiots and these fuck ups and these incompetence, but he says like fuck those men or whatever when Dufresne is trying to like the betterment of the men, you should try and go onto the ship or whatever. They're cooking up their plan when they're on the beach where the Gold is, and him saying "fuck those men" is a great sort of monologue, and everything that builds up into that. I can't remember exactly what builds into it, but I don't know. I just love the pronunciation.
Traitors.
Yeah, it's just great. Flint doesn't waver at all. He's just, well, he does sometimes, but not in that moment. He's like, "Fuck these idiots. They got rid of me. I hate them. I want them all to die on this beach." And he'd be their captain again in just about an episode. So crazy stuff. There's also a half comedic, though it's really not, a Jack monologue. I think this might also be in episode 1. The "they pissed on me" monologue is great.
Another delivery where I'm like, I remember that delivery.
Yes, he says it a bunch of times in that monologue. Anne is very sad because it's entirely her fault and he didn't do nothing. But with the first shot I think we get of Jack in this season is him taking a shit in the public shit house. That can't have been fun. Remember the olden days? They wouldn't.
Terrible.
But yeah, and then they beat him up and piss on him. That's not nice. But then the rest of them are all over the place. The Richard and Eleanor embrace at the end of episode 7, or somewhere near the end of episode 7, where they actually have a moment right before he's gonna get killed, Lamau. Where it's like a long shot of them standing there, and then eventually he puts his hand on her shoulder, and then eventually she puts her head on his shoulder, and it's just like, oh, cute.
Yep.
Great moment. That was one of the ones that I like as the scene was happening. I was like, oh, the moment's coming. It was one of the moments I anticipated rewatching.
Did it live up to the memory?
It did, unlike some of those first episode seasons. First episodes, episodes?
No. I know.
People know what I'm saying.
Amen.
Then I just have her word. Her word will be the last word for this place. Just another one that I remembered and I was waiting for. When Flint makes Ashe look at Barlow. Miranda. Barlow isn't even her real name.
Yeah.
That was another all-timer line that I was looking forward to, and it lived up to everything. The last Anne Jack monologue where she says that I can't be your wife, Jack, but they'll be together until they're put in the ground or whatever. That's great stuff. And then the Anne nearly prostituting herself scene. The directing that scene is incredible. Another one, I remember the first time seeing that and being like, I can't believe this is so good right now. Just the directing, the music, how it's handled, the fact that the dude is actually pretty nice and is not like horrible to her, and that adds a layer to it. And Adele coming to save her at the end. And we'll talk about Anne's journey this season later on, but what a standout scene, what a standout moment. But that's all of the ones I wrote down. I feel like everything kind of qualifies, but I tried not to do just all the big moments there. Those are a bunch of little moments.
Yep. Don't worry, I did that for you.
Yes.
All right.
Well,
so
yeah, we combined brilliantly.
Yeah, we covered the entire season, so that's the end of the video. So the flashbacks.
Talking about the flashbacks first.
Absolutely, we are. My first point in this flashback thing is that Flint is a very good actor. I don't. Is it something Stevens or something?
Toby Stevens.
What an actor! My goodness. Like when I saw him, I almost didn't recognize him because he looks so different. He behaves so different, and it's awesome. But more on the actual flashbacks. So I have some questions for you. So in the flashbacks, what do people actually know about Flint? So like there's 2 scenes that I'm thinking about, which is the bar scene in episode 2 where like Flint beats up those guys. And then there's a scene with in episode 3 where
Yes. I was just gonna say, you finish the point and then I'll go.
Yeah, okay. So the bar scene, and then the other scene I'm thinking about is where Flint's like commander dad guy is talking about this dark thing that all men have, but for you it's like you can't control it and know its limit. So what do they all do? They know that he's bi or gay or whatever?
This goes into the firstly, to separate this into 2 points. The trying to figure out what certain characters know in certain scenes. I feel like we kind of touched on this in the first season video, where we talked about sometimes it's hard to keep up, and I talked about how I think that gets harder as the seasons go on. I actually don't think it was that hard in season 2, though there is more going on in schemes. I remember the first time I watched it in the end of the episode where Silver reveals that, like, oh, actually I fucked him and the gold is still there and I was in on this. I remember feeling like that was almost too much scheming to be going on. This time I thought it was great. But the trying to figure out what exactly characters knows, there was still a bunch of times where I paused it and had to think for like 2 minutes about like, okay, so he knows this and this is this, and that's why this scene is happening. I was always confident that it wasn't like a fuck up on the show's part, but I just wasn't thinking it through right now. Especially when there was like sometimes like 2-day gaps between when I would watch episodes, this might have been worse. I think it's also worse because I know where it's going, because it's like, well, then how are we going to end up there if this is the case here? So it might be particularly a rewatch thing. But also last time we talked about how when you're watching something the first time, you just sort of push through because you're like, oh, it'll be explained, and you don't sort of have to understand everything. Because even if you completely don't follow the scheming and stuff, like the tone of scenes will just sort of, you'll be able to understand like what's happening through the tone. Like if the music is somber, something bad is happening, or whatever. That's simple. But that bar scene is definitely one where I was like, how do they all know that Miranda sleeps around, and how do they know, and why would they like pick on Flint? Aren't they scared of getting like demoted or something? But I feel like there's just a rumor about Mrs. Hamilton and things like that seemingly they all know because they're all in London, I guess. But what was that specifically your initial? Oh, I think the rage thing about the darkness that Flint has inside, because it is interesting because everything works before you realize it's about being gay. It all works as like, oh, Flint has this deep like anger that comes out, and that's why he's like this dastardly pirate, and that's why he has sort of this inner ambition and this anger. But then you realize part of it is repressed, I guess, bisexuality. And it's also, and on top of that, it's like the shame that he is made to feel because of the civilization, the society he lives in. And that sort of comes back with the no shame thing that Thomas writes in the book and things like that, where it's sort of like this unfairness in the world that has been thrust upon him for really no reason, just because of the people that surround him and things like that. So that's what I think. And I think that like that, because this comes back and Miranda starts talking about it. She's like, that voice inside your head or whatever. And she becomes like, she finishes that monologue with that's the monologue where she says, because you loved him or whatever. So I think that's what's going on there. But it is interesting very much so in retrospect.
I mean, even like in the first watch through, it does work very well in that you don't have to understand anything else, and it is just his inner darkness. But I think it is adding that extra dimension of like the repressed and having to hide something, and makes it more impactful.
There is something about Flint that's just like, oh yes, that internal, like Flint is very different from everybody else. He's like this. Well, actually, Miranda has a monologue about great men, and I don't know if Flint necessarily. Well, he kind of fits that for the back half of the season, but he definitely won't moving forward about like wanting to make the world a better place or whatever. But if there is something like great about Flint, about his leadership and the way he leads and his intelligence and his way of manipulating things and stuff like that. So you buy it as like, oh yeah, it's because Flint is the fucking greatest. But obviously it works in two manners. There is something very likable about the father figure character there, which makes it all the more dastardly come the turn, I think, where it is like they're sort of making fun of aristocratic culture or whatever in England, and sort of these people are weird or whatever, and they're specifically talking about Thomas. But I feel like that's sort of a modern sensibility. Like, I don't think you can have a show and not make fun of the dumb wigs. I don't think that's possible. I feel like you have to at some point be like, man, these wigs are fucking stupid. And Thomas doesn't wear his wig very often. I think that makes him more likable. There's just something about those dumb fucking wigs. I even did some Googling about the dumb fucking wigs.
Really?
Like, why do these idiots wear these dumb fucking wigs? And apparently it was because a king was going bald, so he had a bunch of wigs made, and then everybody copied him because that was the style or something. And then it didn't die until the 1800s or some shit.
And then we get Alfred, who never takes his off.
Yeah, that's why we hate him. What a prick.
Yeah, it's probably bald. My goodness.
And we hate bald people.
Yeah,
want to be bald the next time we see him, I'm pretty sure, right?
All right, then we can like
when he cuts
people.
his hair?
I do. You know what? I do remember that he cuts his hair. He has 2 appearances, one with hair and one without. And one with a beard and one without, actually, in this season. But, okay, next up. I have another question. Can you believe it? Or another thing to discuss, I guess, which is that, so what's exactly going on with Flint, Miranda, and Thomas? So is it just the thing where it's like each pair of people has a thing going on between them? Do you think that's what's
I
happening?
don't think. I don't actually. I've never thought about this too hard, but I think Thomas is just gay.
Hmm.
That's my impression, at least.
Yeah.
Um,
So we know.
and
I guess
that's
we know that Miranda loves him, right?
yes.
I guess we don't know the other way around, and like what
It
led him to
doesn't
that. And
necessarily. Maybe they are sleeping together too. Then I've never actually thought about that. I guess
yeah,
I just
like they don't have
typecasted
kids,
him as a gay
so
guy.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess they.
Anyway,
You would
a
think,
bit
well,
of a
there's two things, because there's like, oh, he lets his wife sleep around because obviously otherwise she would never be having sex. That's no fun. Um, or he's just like, he's not made insecure by like other people sleeping with her, and they're
yeah,
open like that, which both fits. Um,
yeah,
like I could see them doing that either way. Um, but like we never see like a threesome situation. We do in the season, but not with these
yeah.
three. Um,
I think
and I don't think
another
we ever see Miranda and Thomas like kiss or anything.
no,
Um,
not that I remember. The thing that I do that stood out to me, I think, is that when you've got the scene where it's Miranda and Thomas talking, I think it's like after the dinner. Um, is it? Yeah, I think it is. And that she's talking about how um wait, was she talking to Tom?
I think
Wait,
she
wait, wait.
says she says she
Yeah,
loves
she
James as
is.
well. Then,
No, I
and
think
he has the
I.
line about like, so people learn that
Yeah, that's
you and
exactly.
him shared a bed. Who cares?
Yeah, and it kind of to me it seems like is he trying to hide it from her? Like, cause he just, but he can't because it's after the dinner, and then the dinner they kissed, right? So,
Yeah, she definitely knows at that point. Yeah.
so why is he like not afraid of it? Is he just too naive? Because
I
he's
don't think he thinks his father will do anything because it will hurt, like his own reputation if his son is found out to be gay. So I
yeah,
think but then that's not the official story anyway. So
yeah,
the official story blames it all on James and Miranda. So
a genius story by Alfred the Big Brain. It's great.
yes,
Okay, I'm glad we clarified all of that. All right. um, so do you want to talk about the dinner scene? I guess. What do you think about it?
it's interesting because the dinner scene doesn't particularly stand out to me.
Yeah, interesting.
Um, I feel like all the other scenes are also like as good. I know. I remember there's like a scene with Miranda and James. This actually might be after the dinner scene, so maybe you talk about this later
Mm.
in your notes. But there's like a scene where Thomas again, and he's like left outside to talk with Peter, and because Peter also knows all of this. I think he knows that they're gay, and he knows about Miranda and everything.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely implied contemporaneously.
Yep.
But yeah, the scene with them alone in like when she's like telling him to stop because she can like see that Alfred will do something or whatever, and Flint is totally in. He's like, "Nah, we'll be good." I like the
Yep.
acting in that scene. I like all this that set particularly in that room.
Yeah.
Sick. And there's one where it's like raining on the window that I remember being cool. But what do you have to say about this dinner scene then?
I just think it's so good. That's it. Can you believe
Yeah.
it? What a note. I don't know. I always have this issue when talking about like why I like something, which is that to me it's one of the most engaging scenes in this whole show where I'm not thinking about anything else just beyond me watching it and being like, oh, what's going to happen next, basically. Even if you know what's going to happen next, it's just it builds the tension. It's got all these big characters where you know them all individually. And I don't know, I guess you could say that about a lot of scenes, but for some reason this scene sticks out to me where I'm like, it's an important moment in Flint's life. He does what we, the audience, would want to do, but that action is what kind of leads to his downfall.
The Alfred Hamilton line to Miranda about like, you've already done enough damage, keep your mouth and your legs closed or whatever. It's just like, it's just the worst. And you're like, man, fuck this dude. And then that's when Flint stands up. So it's cool. And it is also cool that he's like defending her, because the flashbacks are sort of to flesh out him and Thomas's relationship, obviously. And also going in on a first time viewing, you think that him and Miranda are going to fuck over Thomas and leave, because that's the story we're told, because Richard knows the cheating runaway story. So it's kind of like all sort of flashbacks, where you're like, there's like a doom clock of like something bad's gonna happen because this has to like you feel this a lot in like the Golden Age and Berserk where you're like, oh, you know this ends badly, like, and you're like hyper aware of like how it's gonna end badly, but there's always a twist on why it ends, like why it turns bad or whatever, and because you're like anticipating, oh, Miranda and Flint are sleeping together. This is terrible. Thomas is going to be crying about this.
Yep.
But then that's not what's the end of it. But yes, when he says that line and Flint's standing up, it's all good. Also, just a weird point. It's so awkward. Now, I've never eaten at a lord's house on one of these big fucking tables, but it's so weird that like there's basically 2 seats at the head, and then both of the like they're both in the middle, and it's so weird. And do you have to scream to speak to each other? So weird.
No, they got echoey
weird,
rooms.
Weird.
It is weird.
Big echo.
It's tradition. All tradition is weird. You know, we should just abolish all useless tradition like that. And the wigs as well. I hate the wigs. But anyway,
wigs are awful. I guess there's no other way to do it. If you have these dumb, big, long tables, just get a circle table. You fucking idiot. Like,
yeah. You know what? They get there eventually. I guess it's another point into why the civilized society isn't that civilized. You know, they have these long tables. It's terrible. Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. Do we want to do a wide thematic talk? Like.
All right, no, I was just joking about that point, by the way. But yeah,
but the wide thematic talk that I don't even think I have a note on this, but we do have to get over it at some point. Is kind of to do with Alfred Hamilton. I don't know when else he'll come up.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
do you want to do it now, or did you have something else quickly on the dinner scene or something?
Let me think. So in terms of the flashbacks, I guess the only other thing directly related to what we were saying is about that Miranda scene with Flint, which is like. To me, the one thing that's, I think, interesting in this is the fact that Flint, and the scene, just to clarify, the scene I'm talking about is after the dinner where you've got Miranda going to Flint and talking about how, like, don't push this too far, like, this will be this will lead to certain, like, undoing or whatever. And I think it's just interesting that Flint plays such a large part in his own downfall, where he's trying to do the right thing and he's pushing it to the limit, and like Miranda loves him because he's a realist, right? Like he knows the way the world works, and he knows that he knows how to maneuver it. And he's taken it too far. Like he hasn't taken it far enough. Like he's become more like Thomas in a way. It is the downfall. Where him taking it too far. It's just interesting. That's the only point I got on that. I didn't remember that from the first time I watched it at all. But yeah.
There's actually two other lines I remember that I just jotted down before I get into the dumb thematic stuff. And by dumb, I mean genius.
Yes.
There's a moment that Peter has after Flint arrives. Oh, it's actually so cute because Flint comes back after like 6 months, and like there's like, because again this is before the gay reveal, so there's like a slight focus on Miranda being happy that he's back, but then there's like when him and Thomas see each other again for the first time, and obviously it has to be reserved. Because they can't just like run into each other's arms or something. But that moment's really great. But that's not even what I wanted to talk about. The line I wanted to talk about is when Peter is there with them there, and Flint relays the news that like, oh, the governor got fucking decapitated or whatever, Lamau, and his kid too. And everybody said, fuck England, and they want to get the pardons, and now the pardons aren't going to look very good because the governor just got decapitated. These pirates shake my head. Do you remember we meet the character that did that? Do you remember that at all in season 4?
We meet the character who beheaded the governor?
Decapitated.
Oh, yeah.
Blackbeard was the one that did it, but yeah. Well, he wasn't the one that decapitated. It was Blackbeard's, like, he was the one that starts that situation.
Absolutely not. It's not the Israel guy?
Yeah, that's him.
It is him? Yeah, I don't know. I vaguely remember that. What a name. Israel or something. Israel Hands or something is what I remember.
Yeah, something like that. He's cool.
Interesting.
He also wants to kill Flint all the time, though, and that's not cool.
Yeah.
He also drops him off with Thomas at the end, though, so that's kind of cool.
What a bloke. Who I hardly remember.
But yes, the line I'm trying to get to is that Peter just has those fucking idiots line or something, and he gets mad. There's something about, like, I've seen that line before, like that exact situation where somebody's like, I feel like this happens in The Sopranos a lot because it's a very visceral thing. There's a lot of you go back and you watch Dragon Ball Z, right? This is a hell of a tangent. And they cut away from the reactions of things, of people finding out things, and that's the worst writing in human history. I want to see every second of Videl realizing that Gohan actually beat Cell. I don't want her to have this thing where she's like, oh, so you're the one that did it, Gohan, I just figured it out. And she says it in a monotone voice because we got bigger things to deal with because Majin Buu's over there or something. Fuck that. The biggest moment, fuck this Buu prick. I love Majin Buu. I just want to see fucking Videl realize this and fall in love. That's all I want to see. Now we head over to the Sopranos world, and they have reaction shots for everything. They'll cut to everybody finding out in news, and they all have this moment of going, fucking hell, no way, or something, or they'll just freak out. And it's such a visceral pleasure to me. I love reactions. We all love reaction videos. We've all come to learn recently in recent internet years. We just love that those little reactions.
Yep.
And I don't know. There was something in Peter's reaction here of like those, like his frustration that they were almost there, but they've been undercut almost entirely, and now it seems like their plan is doomed.
Yep.
There's a great line there. And then again, the scene after Thomas is taken away and Flint comes back after he has also been admonished. And Miranda has a line about how, I don't know if this is the exact phrasing, but she goes like, I am outraged or something when Flint is like talking about how mad he is about it. And I don't know, her acting there, I don't know the actress's name, but her acting in a lot of scenes here, it's almost always slightly off in her anger. And I think there's a lot of nuance there. And I really like the way she acts a lot of the scenes where she's angry. And this comes back later with the confrontation with Peter and things like that. So I don't know if the line is specifically do you remember this line?
She says, I am enraged or something like that.
I'm enraged. That's right.
It's great.
And she gets up and she like stumbles, and the face she makes, it's all
so she's like, but I made a promise. We're getting out of here. We're looking after each other.
Are we going to talk more about the reveal scene with actually Alfred Hamilton is sitting there when Flint and the father figure are walking through the...
I mean...
Do you have more on that, or
I don't have more on it, like specifically, but it's just so great, is what I think. Like I said in the standout moments, where it's just like it's the moment that Flint's, it's just everything turns upside down, right?
It's the most vulnerable I think we ever see him. Of like he's like shaking and he has like no idea what to do, and he's like, there's a Madman moment very similar to this, where especially when he's running back to the mansion, where he's like just in a huff and he has no idea what to do, and being at that breaking point. But specifically in that scene, there is also a line that I don't exactly remember where just Alfred going like, did you think I wouldn't find out in my own home or something? It's just like, ugh, what a prick. I hate this prick.
Yeah.
And I think the father figure even says like, oh, I would like to help you out, son, or something, but something this vile cannot be forgiven or something. And it's like, not even an offense at all, and it's just like, man, sucks. And it's like
and that's the man who we've always been like, he's on Flint's side, like he saved him from the bar, like he's a good man, and here he is turning against him. It's just terrible. And even one thing I was thinking is about how Alfred probably doesn't care, right? Like Alfred only really cares in that that first Flint disrespected him. It's probably, and it could hurt his reputation, but even that, I don't think he really cares. I think it's just the fact that it all comes down to he disrespected him, and he thinks this plan is absolutely ridiculous, like Thomas's plan and everything. Yeah. The way he lives his life is just an embarrassment to Alfred.
Because remember, he's supposed to be the Lord Governor or whatever over all this stuff, so it's like it'll impact his reputation, things like that. Yeah. I guess this is where everything, like the fact that it is such a non-offense, and especially obviously because of our modern sensibilities, most people at least obviously think this is like such a nothing offense to just be like derided for being gay or whatever. And this then gets into the bigger thing, because again, thinking about reputation and things like that, if we go back to the monologue from the pilot about shame keeping civilization in order or whatever, it very much ties in. And I think this is the big thematic thing of like this so-called like civilization or the civilization of the time, or this very white straight male civilization, to go outside of that, to allow your wife to have autonomy over who she sleeps with, or to be gay, or to try and step outside of like shaming pirates or whatever, like Thomas wants to do, and all of this is to be shameful. Like most people don't want to do it, and this is even shown in the scene where Thomas goes to all of his like buddies or whatever that they talk about things all the time with, and them all walking out on him except for Peter Ashe. It's like they basically probably all agree with everything there. In the bill that Thomas wants to propose or whatever, they know that the shame that will come to their reputation if they agree to something like that. And I think again, that ties into the monologue from the first episode, where we see the first like civilized man sort of in the entire show. And what's his name? What's Thomas's fucking father's name?
Alfred.
Yes, Alfred is sort of the representation of all of this in the entire story, where he is sort of using shame to his advantage, and he is sort of this like lazy, stoic, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but he's just like this patriarch and like the representation of everything wrong with society. And he runs society. Like he has the most power governmentally that we see. He's overriding his son and Peter Ashe and everybody. And he's the undoing of this entire situation. It's sort of like the whole thing of like reconciliation later and of Flint's like anger with England is like, and sort of the argument against becoming civilized and for being a pirate is sort of like not wanting to live in this world where like a man like this runs everything and men like him run everything.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the realization of him as a representation of that, I think, is very effective of like, well, let's blow up fucking Charlestown. Fuck these idiots. Because even later in Charlestown, the judge there talks about how important civilization is and how Flint like tries to undo everything when he's like slamming the insurance claims and the property damage and the widows and orphans things down on the table, and it's like this fake, like we're actually the civilized ones while the pirates are the savages. And obviously the entire show hinges on reflecting that and being like, no, it's kind of the other way around, especially in 17th century society where all this is so fucked up and all the black people are slaves that we're going to meet if we don't fight and things like that. It's sort of this shows. I don't think any other show besides Black Sails would try and paint or at least be morally ambiguous with what happens in Charlestown and be like, well, maybe this is the right thing. Maybe all of these innocent people dying is worth it because they are tacitly endorsing this civilization concept through their participation, and that is a grievous enough sin against like so many other people that they would want to subjugate for it to be almost a morally good action to blow up a whole fucking town. Crazy stuff. It makes you think about all these things and who's in the right here and who's in the wrong.
Yeah.
And certainly by the end, when it's all happening, you're like, fucking blow this shit up. And when we also get shots of all of the crowd being throwing stuff at Miranda and
terrible,
being awful. So it's like, yeah, fucking kill them all.
Yeah, well, I remember writing that somewhere in my notes. I was like, yeah, these people, they're monsters. Get rid of them all. You know, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But
and because Flint even has the monologue, right? Everybody's a monster, like to somebody, and if you think I am, then I will be, or whatever. And it's like, fuck them all. And we'll see this, like the opening scene of season 3, if you remember, is them like going through. No, I think so.
I remember that.
I think you actually might be right. But the first Flint scene, and I think it might be the second scene, is like their whole crew like just burning down another place where the governor hasn't done that much bad there. He just like hung somebody for piracy. And they're basically trying to be like, you can't kill pirates anymore, or we will kill your entire. And like, I remember Flint shoots like an innocent girl in the corner, and then like he later has a vision that that's Barlow or something, and he clearly has like some regrets about that. But that anger will sort of not subside, but will drive the plot for like the next 2 seasons of like, even when Rogers shows up and he sort of initially is like the best that civilization has to offer, like he takes Eleanor's advice and is clearly, but he's still like advocating for a return to society and things like that. So it's like, Flint can't let that happen. And it's interesting because Flint is also almost won over because he thinks like society can be what do you call it when it's renovated, or we can make it better through pardons and things like this. But by the end, he's forced to give up on that. What they call it, reconciliation, or they can grow. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm now hyper aware whenever there's like 5 seconds of you not saying anything. I'm like, oh no.
Don't worry, I'm here. Again. I can hear you at least the whole time.
And that's all that matters, Lamau. Yep. But anyway, I think that's the monologue. Shame and things and bad, and this civilization is bad, so let's kill it. Can't believe we are killing people and being like, yeah, that's the way to fucking go.
Okay, so on this civilization point, I've got 3 things that I was thinking about. The first thing is about just in that final scene where they're destroying the town, or even before that, where it's like where the prosecutor is like putting all the evidence to Flint and all that. I think it is just interesting how you've got all the like selfishness and lies and all that going on with like Lord Ashe in that situation. Pretty much everyone there, right? Like even when they go and talk, when Ashe takes the other guy and talks about Abigail's diary, and they're like, oh, you could just burn it and it'll all be good, but is that the right thing to do, blah, blah, blah. But you got all that. And then on the other hand, you've got all the people on the ship, and they're like standing up for Silver, and then they're all coming together to do the right thing, and it's like it's just the like the brotherly love on that ship versus like all the selfishness and lies and everything in Charlestown. It's like the complete opposite of like what you think would be civilized and what isn't, and like so I thought that was interesting in regards to that.
I think the just briefly, the most important thing is like we live in a society. We live in a civilization currently, and a civilization that's, especially for us, directly derives from all of the civilizations we're sort of rallying against. So we know basically that eventually we get there where we aren't shaming politicians out of their careers for being gay or something. But that's a very recent development, obviously. So it's like eventually we will get there. But like, if you were teleported into Black Sails, you can't wait 300 years for the world to be somewhat inclusive and somewhat good. Like, you kind of got to blow shit up. Yeah.
Yes. So the path to civilization is uncivilization. No, that doesn't make any sense. All right. Okay. Oh, what else? So civilization. I think the only other interesting thing that I found is something I didn't pick up until I went and like read my notes, is the fact that the entire season opens with that like them boarding that ship, Lowe's men boarding the ship, and then the captain on that ship talking about how like these are men, not monsters. Like if we behave rationally and civilly, so will they. And it just defines the whole season, right? Like that's the whole point of everything. To talk about like civilization and non-civilization, and he's fascinated about like Nassau, and like there's like a girl running all the trade there, and it's all what a fanciful world they live in. But I don't know, I thought that was interesting way to frame the whole season.
I've now just had this thought that it's kind of all about fear, the whole season, and sort of the power that fear has. There is a monologue about when you stop fearing something, like at some point towards the end, because I feel like I watched it either today or yesterday. Once you stop fearing something, all right, it loses all meaning, or nobody's going to surrender to something they don't fear. I think this is like Vane's excuse for going to help Flint. But like, we are shown Ned Lowe at the beginning of the season, who is sort of like what everybody thinks pirates are, like the fact that does exist a little bit. And then even then, when Vane kills him, he makes the sign and says, I angered Charles Vane, or whatever. And that's supposed to be a show of like fear. And I think that's brought up later, maybe at his trial at the end of season 3 or something, about like what a savage this Charles Vane is. He decapitated somebody, put his head on a spike and paraded it around town or something. And it's like, oh, what an evil bloke this Vane is. But it's removed from all context and things like that. So sort of weaponized fear and things like that is definitely something that runs thematically throughout the entire season.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the flashback section right now, believe it or not.
We are.
So, but maybe that's. I think we've talked about basically everything. My only other strict note I've got in the flashback section is that I completely forgot that Ashe betrayed them. So I was on his side the whole time. I was like, what a great bloke. And then he got to the end where they're like, even up till the present where you see him and he like walks in after that Abigail scene where they're like in the back, and then he walks through the door. I was like, oh, I'm glad he's here. Like maybe he will listen to them, because I couldn't remember what caused this to all go wrong. Yep, he's a
he's
a
got
bad
a calming
person,
presence.
Yep. I
mean, I feel like he did kind of have no choice, kind of, maybe.
No, definitely not.
He was threatened.
What are you talking about? So he has that scene with Flint where Flint's like, "So did you do this for your own ambitions and getting titles and all that?"
That scene is weird.
Well,
maybe I have a question about it. I'm not sure what happened there.
Well, to me,
like, was he
just
threatened?
Yeah, to me, it's like he won't
maybe
do
he wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think he wasn't threatened, right? Like, the lie that he was telling before was that he was threatened, and now that he's with Flint alone, he even won't admit it then. He's too afraid to really say what he wants because he's just a terrible person. I don't know. That's the gist of it.
I bet, I bet the clock is in the earlier scenes, but even remembering that the clock is the thing that like sets Miranda off in that episode, I didn't think to look for the clock in the earlier scenes. I'm almost certain it has to have been in those scenes, though.
Yeah. Maybe the dinner scene? We get like a lot of stuff there. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Flashbacks.
Crazy stuff.
The clocks. The clock. Actually, I did remember the clock. I remember that was Alfred Hamilton's clock. What a memory I have. So next up, present day, Flint, Miranda, Ashe, and Abigail. But we've probably talked about quite a bit of this. Firstly, we get what Thomas's plan was, which is to pardon all the pirates and then get them to govern themselves, basically, and create get a governor there, but then get them to become like workers and stuff and create their own little nation. And firstly, I bring this up because like last time when we were talking about what Flint really wants, I just completely forgot that was Thomas's goal. So I guess to me it does color like a lot of what Flint was doing last season and earlier this season, where it's like he does really want to work towards creating this dream in Nassau. So I thought that was interesting. A bit obvious, I guess, which should have been obvious to me if I remembered.
Do you remember how that comes into play later?
Don't think so.
Where Rogers like basically actualizes this whole plan, but Flint still stands against it.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just cool. This situation is still developing, this thematic situation. So.
Yep. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So the other
also quickly, I'm being a prick, but I wrote it down anyway. It would be a colony, not a nation.
Oh, okay. Yes.
You said about NASA.
You know what, Kyle? You're a semantic genius. Look at you.
Semantic prick, some might say.
Yes. We also get a great scene in the present. I don't know why it's in this section, but of Silver pointing out to Flint that he cares about what people think about him. It's like, that must be terrible being you. Well, what a scene.
Oh, that's in something else too. That's in Mad Men too. In the Mad Men pilot, it's like somebody having a realization that like it must be terrible to be the other person, and like having that realization in front of them is almost like insulting, and like oh my god, like Flint kind of there's parts of Flint of himself that he hates, which he does go on a monologue about where he gets his name from. That we might touch on. Quickly.
Yeah.
The Abigail actress I like a lot. I think she's really good. I don't know, there's a way she talks that's really good. When she first meets Vane and she's like, oh, the other one said I wasn't to talk, and Vane's like, I don't think you need to worry about him, he's dead or whatever, and she's like, good, and then she starts eating, and then she eats the worm bread. Yucky. That's no good.
What a brave person.
I think she's all around pretty great.
I agree.
It's very nice that they put in the line where it's like, oh, she's in the interior, she doesn't get blown up with the rest of them in Charlestown. That's good.
Yep.
We never see her again. She could have come back and like hated pirates because of what Flint did, and maybe he would have had to confront that in season 4 or something, but that never happens. I assume she's happy in the interior for the rest of her life. How fun.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll... Yep, exactly. But I agree. She's great. I think I like her more than I should. Like, in that she doesn't have that much happening.
Me also.
But yeah, I like her a lot. Like, every scene of her, I'm like, oh, neat. And it's even her interactions with other people that I like so much, more than her on her own. But I do like her, like, narrating the diary that she's writing. And especially the scene where you've got like, initially when she sees the pirate, the scary guy, and he's like, oh, these men are terrible. Stern. Yeah, and then you see him when he's crying.
And then he's like, crying later.
It's so great.
That's something I viscerally remembered too, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, like, these are just men. They care about their brothers, and man.
He actually isn't crying in the second scene, because I remembered it as him crying later, but he actually is just like sullen, and he particularly watches the body later. But yeah, it's fucking sick. Good stuff.
Yes. But on the Flint name thing, so Flint names himself after this ghost of a man who appeared to his grandfather one day. And it's when Flint was coming up with a name, when he talked to Gates initially, I think, he says Flint was his name because that's who he wanted to be. He wanted to be someone who could, he could assume this identity and then just disappear eventually. Interesting. I had no idea about that. I forgot about that completely, but it's great.
Ready for another Mad Men tie-in?
Oh, hell yeah. What a great show.
This identity theming, it's not hit on too much in Black Sails. I guess it is kind of with Flint's character of like, is he Captain Flint or is he more James McGraw? Like, where do these two people meet? How much of them is internally inside of him? Mad Men is a lot like this, where it's like the main character kind of has two identities of like, is he Dick Whitman or is he Don Draper? Question mark. I'll remain vague enough to not spoil that for anybody that might want to watch Mad Men eventually, and when I hook Ari on it.
Hey, I've seen the first 5 minutes.
This theme of I find this one fascinating of like, even just like in real life, like, who are you more, the person that like speaks or the person that thinks? Of like, is the person that thinks internally the real you, or is the one that speaks more the real you? And then this goes into an Ava thing about like, maybe what really matters is the you that exists in other people's minds and how they perceive you, because that exists like 100-fold through all of the people you meet, more than just once internally in your head, which nobody will ever actually see. What is identity? Who are you? What is a Kyle Entertainment? What is an elite RE? Is it what they are perceived as, what they actually are? What are they actually?
Yeah.
All interesting philosophical things that comes into play, especially when you have a character that have two identities who act very differently. One is a naval officer, one is a pirate. My goodness, two opposites that one being has to embody. What an interesting laid character this Flint is. What an analogy for this whole thing. Is this story about this bloke just disappearing into the water? The sea swallowed him. This actually goes into a Gates monologue that Flint actually has quite a reaction to, that might have been a tie into this potential moment where he's like, the sea pays us, then it claims us or whatever, and sort of being swallowed back by the sea. How cute. What a great story. And of course he shares it with Miranda. How nice.
Yes.
Oh, do you remember last time when I was like, Ari, I brought up this scene and you didn't remember it. There's a scene in season 3 with Miranda in it where it's like Flint having a hallucination or something, where he says like, Thomas's death, it hurt or whatever, but then he's like, but yours ruined me.
No, I don't remember it.
It's going to be the greatest scene of all time.
Yeah, I keep hearing it when I'm like editing the video for last time, but
I wonder if I'm not going to like it as much. I'm terrified.
And then I'll love it. It'd be great.
They're like on the Lord of the Rings boats. Oh, it's so good. Like on long boats, just rowing down a river, and there's like a scary death dude and everything. Oh,
scary death dude.
So
you know
good.
what?
I don't know. There's literally a scary death dude who's like dressed up as death that Flint sees all the time at the beginning of the next season. You'll see it.
Yeah, I guess I will.
What a great stuff. Miranda, what a character.
Yep. Present day Miranda, past Miranda, they're all great.
Yes. Did you particularly have anything to say about this scene? Because I just hijacked it.
No, not at all. It's another good scene. Wow. Another great scene. A little bit of details on Flint. I wonder if this was really a ghost. What do you think, Kyle?
Was it? What a weird, what a story.
I think it was a ghost. Yeah.
Makes it.
All right. Anyway, so present day Flint, Miranda, Ashe, and Abigail. What else do we have to talk about?
All their initial scenes are so good. Like the meeting slowly, like them slowly lulling you into a false sense of security that it's going to work, and then it not working because Miranda is the one that loses control. Why would you think that? But then you think back, and Miranda does lose control a bit. She's a bit angry about things. It's like, oh, another layer to her character. That fucking yes, and that the whole last monologue where it's like, you should pay for you paid for this place with our suffering, and I want to see you, and I want to do the. She says fucking at one point. It's so good. She's like, I want to pull the fucking lever myself or something, and then she gets shot. It's so.
By that man, that evil man, who
that is the worst
is
man
he named?
of all
I don't know.
time.
Yeah, he is, and he survived until the end. And then I was like, oh no, is it like an ambiguous ending?
The cannonball hits him. No, he gets hit with the cannonball.
But I legitimately, I forgot about him.
In 3 pieces.
It was terrible. Yeah, I saw him at the end running on the dock. I was like, oh, Flint's gonna let him live. He's rowing away, and then he dies. Thank God. And what a cool shot of like the ship coming through and the cannons like shooting through the smoke.
It's so great. Good. It's nearly as good as the 1,000 Things opening in the last
in
the last season.
Very true.
Oh, and I'd be remiss. I don't even know if that's the right word. Remiss. If we didn't bring up the greatest song of all time that plays at the end of episode 9 after the Miranda thing. I can't believe RE is not down with.
No, you know what? I love it. I do love it. I just don't. I did not know what you. So Kyle quoted this to me once, guys, just so whoever's listening.
Yeah,
I had no idea what he was talking about.
How can I not remember the night? I know you are not poor, and I just put like a bunch of R's at the end of poor, and he was like, what the fuck are you? It's so good. I remember the first time, like, because I remembered the episode ending with like the direct gunshot, and then it cut to that, but actually there's a bunch, like, I think Eleanor gets arrested after that, and then it plays the song.
It is really interesting. It's strange. Like when Miranda died. Wait, this is in the Miranda dying episode? Yeah, like she dies, and you got 2 scenes after that, and in the next scenes, I'm just like, I can't focus on this. She just died, and me as like the person who didn't remember what happens, I'm in shock there. It's hard to focus. I think I even paused it for a second. Like I need to think about this for a second.
I definitely remembered it as she gets shot dead. Episode ends immediately. Song starts playing because that song does fit to like Miranda and Flint's relationship, and I think about it whenever I listen to that song. But there was a time period where that song and then a Childish Gambino song called "Me and My Mama" or "Me and Your Mama" or something. It's a mama joke. He's fucking your mama, Ari.
Genius.
An incredible song, both of them, and they were just on repeat for like a month. And that was when I was watching Black Sails. I was like, man, what a time that was.
Well, okay, before we like change topic, on that ending song, this is, I think, probably the one episode so far in the whole show where I did listen to it.
Song?
Like, no, like I got to the end of the episode and I was like, I just want to let it run and just like listen to the whole thing, you know?
You gotta watch the credits for everything, all right? Even for movies, I watch every credit. I watch the whole credits thing. I just sit there and think for a little while. It's great.
I do it if like I'm gonna make a video on this one day. I don't know where I mentioned this, but I do think credits are an important part of like your perception. Did I even talk about this last time in Black Sails?
I don't think I've heard this point before.
Oh, yeah, interesting. I talked about it somewhere, but I think the credits are an important part of how you perceive the kind of passion behind the production of something, and also just the quality of an episode for me. Like if I can sit in the credits and they're really well crafted and they're kind of different from normal credits, and I don't know, it impacts me and it leaves me with a better like perception of the entire episode just from seeing how much attention was paid to like how the credits are designed and all that and the music and everything. I don't know, it's important, but I haven't thought about it well yet.
Yeah, for me it's a completely different feeling because for me, there's like, when you watch something really good, or not even that good, because I remember I had this with the movie Casino, and that's like an 8 out of 10 movie, it's good. But there's like an ecstasy of coming off of watching something. There's like an elevated state between like watching a YouTube video and then watching like a TV show or a movie. And I like the slow coming back to reality that can sort of take place through a credits where your attention's not entirely drawn to it anymore, but you're just like quietly thinking about it, especially for movie credits because they're usually like 6 or 7 minutes long, and just sitting there before you like check your phone or something. I like the ecstasy of that moment. There's actually a video that I want to make about sort of the elevation of watching something really great, and then sort of being brought back down. I was watching an old ContraPoints video that talks about it. It's not, she doesn't use the word ecstasy in it. I think it's transcend, I think is the word she uses, where you like transcend when you're watching something and then you're slowly brought back down to the mundanity of life, and it's sort of a melancholic feeling or something. But there's something there, and it's funny because I get that from newer ContraPoints videos. I think they're so good that at the end I'm like, oh my God. And I get it from Ava every time, and it's like just general things. There's sort of a feeling after you finish something and you think it's great, and watching the credits and sort of just stewing in it. That I think is like maybe the most rewarding part of the experience.
So I'm kind of confused because I agree with what you just said, and I think that was the whole point I was trying to convey. But the other thing you said before, I didn't agree with at all, which is interesting. Like
which part?
So initially you said it was like an ecstasy, right? Wait, not even an ecstasy, where it's like you're being brought down to just the mundanity of life, right? That was the first or something you said. And I've just never experienced that, I don't think, when I'm like watching something and it's over.
Really?
I don't think, if you're explaining it, if I'm understanding it right, I guess. But the second point about like how you're sitting there after you've seen something incredible and you're just reflecting on the actual thing itself. I think I've definitely experienced that. Like, and the thing I was thinking of while you were saying that was like, I don't remember what Game of Thrones episode, but when like the Reigns of Castamere is like playing at the end, and it's just like,
might be Blackwater or
I think it is.
Or Joffrey dying. The Joffrey dying one is actually the better version of the
that's
song.
the one I'm thinking of. Yeah,
I just got a weird deja vu moment of being like, yeah, I feel like I had the exact same experience because it is a very more like the Blackwater one is like a very like it's sort of an understated singing of the song, though I love that version of the song also. But the Joffrey death one is like the really like sort of gospel-esque version of the song where it's I don't want to try and sing. It's fucking sick. It's so good.
And I just sit there and listen to it and be like, what did I just watch?
Oh, like because it feels like it's in like the back of your head, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
like it feels like that Anne scene where it's sort of in the background the whole time, and it's like, but it's also like the whole point.
Yeah.
It's good, but you're not a big music guy, right?
Not at all.
Yeah, because there's a transcendence thing. Like, I feel like I've had it like 7 times while I'm like in the shower and it's like 3 a.m. and it's all dark because I shower with the lights off because it's cool. And I'll be listening to Comfortably Numb, and it gets to the point in Comfortably Numb at the end of the guitar solo where everything because there's also another Pink Floyd line that says everything under the sun is in tune or something when you get to the end of the Dark Side of the Moon album, and there's just a moment where it's like it is almost so there's something in the background, like the sound of the water is at the background, and you sort of like transcend for that moment. It's like, oh my god. There's something about that moment where you like feel like you have all the answers in the world, like everything under the sun is in tune. You've just had this epiphany of like everything is I just figured out the world. I get that with Ava and ContraPoints videos, and it's interesting because I always wanted to make a video called ContraPoints is Evangelion, because a lot of people would think if you say that you think they're both confusing, but my point would be actually they're both simple and super easy and transcendent.
Yeah,
what a great video idea that would be.
No, I'd love to watch that.
Title.
Yeah,
it's there is something special about that. I find that a lot. We shouldn't probably go into a tangent about this, but the transcending thing is an interesting point that is due a scripted video, I think. But also just my last point on the song. What a song! What a song
with lyrics.
Nick Cave cover, so good. Literally about Flint and Miranda, even though it definitely wasn't written for them, because I think Leonard Cohen would have been dead. Is Leonard Cohen dead? That's another tangent we don't need to go on.
I don't even know who that is.
He's the writer of the song. He also wrote Hallelujah.
Oh, that's right.
When you hear Hallelujah in your head, that's not him singing it, because most of his songs, like he's like the best songwriter, but like most of his songs have been covered by people and they made it more famous. So he's made
like anime adaptations, right?
Covers. The exact opposite of that, where the original isn't the best one. You hear Jeff Buckley in your head when you're thinking of the Hallelujah song.
All right.
But, anyway, the last point on the song is that the episode, I don't know if this had to be a directive from like the creators, and this was probably a directive when it was on Netflix, and where I'm watching it on Stan. Usually as soon as the credits start, it'll have like a pop-up thing where it'll be like, click to watch the next episode, or you have to click off to let the credits go. Now that pisses me off because I want to watch the credits every time. But for the credits for episode 9, it doesn't come up until like 10 seconds into the song, because clearly the song is part of like the episode where it's like you're supposed to hear that song, because every other episode just ends with an instrumental track. And I think that's true for the rest of the entire show. But that one ends with Avalanche, and it's like, oh, they clearly wanted you to hear the beginning, especially the beginning notes of that song, which are like so haunting. And it's like, oh, this is like part of the thingy here. It's like, man, fucking Miranda's dead. What a sad song. And I thought that was a really clever touch. I actually didn't watch the credits because I wanted to make that note before I forgot it. Yesterday. So, indeed, I think the song, what a song! I love it. It's great.
Yep. All right.
What are we talking about? So Miranda and Flint and modern day stuff.
Yeah. So I honestly don't remember. That is the section we're in. Yeah, she got shot. It was great. The whole season's great. Abigail's great. I think I was just saying that I like Abigail.
More than you think you should.
Yeah, more. Yeah, that's right. Yep. And then we got a big tangent. It's awesome. All right. So my last point on the present day stuff is about just Ashe being a bad person, I guess. And I think the thing that really made me hate him.
He's like a bad person.
Yeah. It's so like, I mean, we've talked about like how he's like he's just lying until the end to me. Like where at the end he doesn't admit it, but Flint kind of says it for him. Like we already talked about this a little bit. Where he's like, I actually have the line here. Even here, alone with a condemned man, you are unable to speak the truth.
Yeah.
And that's a great, like that, I think that works really well for Ashe. But to me, what made me like hate him is the fact that before Flint actually has his trial, he's like negotiating with him and is like, come on, just come clean and do all this and we can have a nice private thing. And he uses Miranda's corpse as like a bargaining chip. And he's like, come on, you don't want to see her corpse defiled or whatever. It's just it's so gross and terrible. And I
don't think he has control over that. I think that was going to happen regardless of if he wanted.
Yeah, but the way he says it,
like,
even
this is going to get out of hand, and like, I don't know. I understand what you're.
Yeah, stop defending this guy. What are you doing, Jesus, Kyle?
I don't know. I feel a little bad for him, but
I don't feel bad at all. He's terrible. He's not as bad as the guy that shot Miranda, right?
This place.
Yeah,
that's definitely true. I do like that he has a scene with Abigail after that's happened. Now, the last thing, I don't know if it's the last thing, because I could come up with a bunch of bullshit to say. But one thing that I wanted to say is another one of the lines that's like ingrained in my head is when he says like, "This is not what I wanted," and the way he says it, I remember that.
Don't shoot him. Don't shoot him. Yeah.
But yeah, specifically, "This is not what I wanted," and him like pleading that way. It's like, what a fella. It is sort of a pathetic evil that is like particularly like slimy and particularly like, oh, I kind of feel bad for him a little bit.
Yep.
But indeed.
Okay.
So Flint goes out of his way to kill him himself.
Yep. And then Flint embraces the Flint identity, and that is who he is. And the present day section is done.
Never going away.
Yep. You will never see Thomas again, unless you include the dream at the end of the show, right? But we'll get to that. All right, so next
some awful things to be read.
All right, the next up is the Silver section and / other crewmates, but I mainly talked about Silver.
What a fella this Silver is.
Yeah, so this is really
my Silver appreciation.
He gets a lot of stuff this season. Like I know last time when we were talking, I was like, you know what, Silver's gone down in my rankings because he didn't really do that much, and I didn't find him that interesting last season. And you were like, yeah, this is the best Silver's ever been. I can't believe it. He gets worse from here.
Season 2 is the best Silver's ever been.
Okay,
right?
Okay, good.
Season 3, he starts being a nice bloke. I hate him.
Yeah. I mean, he's on his path to being a nice bloke here. You know, he's looking after his brothers. But to
frame this quickly before you get into the specifics, remember that moment in Berserk where it references a old painting where a shuriken is warned that like the more you stare into the abyss, the more it stares back at you. I feel like this is is sort of what's happening with Silver throughout this entire season. He starts like pretending. I guess this is also kind of ties into an identity thing that we were just talking about with Flint. But the more he like fake cares for the crew and fake gets attached to the crew and invested in their lives, the more they begin to like him. And in return, because of that like positive like feedback loop, he starts to care about them. And that's sort of actualized at the end when he refuses to give them up. Even though the other dude does want to give him up, and it's clear that like now, and because this also happens with the conversation he has with Billy at the end, where he's like, you have like 8 votes or something, and like the men really like you, and then they go to take him away, and they all stand up to defend him or whatever, and it's sort of like, well, Silver, they love you. Do you love them? And the answer is, well, yeah, he kind of does, and
enough to lose a leg
because he's like the worst. He's like this love shit is stupid, Lamau, and then he fell in love with the pretty girl. Shake my head. He used to think this was all silly nonsense, but now he realizes that he is part of the silly nonsense.
And then you hate him for it.
He starts becoming a lot less fun, a lot less witty.
Yeah.
Starts becoming serious. I think it's a stupid fucking beard. I'm gonna be honest.
Yes.
But
you hate bald people. You hate people with beards. It's terrible. All right. So. Silver this season. Okay, he starts his...
we get to talk about the first part with him and Vane, Flint, which we haven't talked about yet.
No, actually, it's just so great. That's all. I remember that distinctly, like very well. like them getting captured on that ship and like escaping, and
what the fuck do you think was
yep,
gonna happen?
that's a line delivery.
It's in the brain forever.
Absolutely,
it's so good. Because for the first, like, because it is interesting because they become like the best of friends later on.
Oh yeah.
But like Vane, I keep thinking Vane because that's what my cursor is on right now. A Vane note.
Yep.
Flint is such a prick to him, kind of, and it's kind of a great dynamic. It's like the most entertaining dynamic in some of those earlier episodes. It's just like him being a prick to Silver and Silver being the sort of a witty prick back, and just how they would deal with things. And Silver's pretty blue eyes, and it's just all great.
Yeah. I think
yes, that whole first thing when he initially wants to he thinks they're gonna like escape, but and then Silver slowly realizes through the course of that scene that Flint is actually going to go and attack the ship by himself, and he like freaks out. And just that buddy cop duo as they're trying to take over the ship, and Silver's forced to fight the one bloke. It's just what a classic episode. What a romp between these two. It is so good.
And I also just love how like that shared like bonding over their exile like just carries on, and like after that they have this special like connection between them, you know, where they were the two blokes that were exiled by their crew, and here they are, and it's just great.
And at the end, they have the most power. They're captain and quartermaster. How? Yeah. Tables have turned. Fuck, I had and this kind of goes back at the very last scene they have, where it's where like Silver basically confesses his last misdeed that he'll ever do against the crew, where he's like, well, then, you know, that bloke, he kind of confessed the goal wasn't there. And you could tell that Flint knows, because Flint at the beginning of season 3 hates Silver, and he's like, I know this fucking prick. And then there's when they're going out to hunt sharks, Silver, and they're alone, Silver like confesses it to him and says, I told him about it. And the madness that is on Flint's face when he sees that eventually. It's just so good. And it's like, from then on, they are on a clean slate. But, fuck, I forgot what else I was going to say. I was going to build from that. But they're a great duo thingy.
Yep, but...
Great duo.
What about Randall and Silver? What an amazing duo they are.
What a bunch of fellas.
It's just so great. Like
I just thought about this today, by the way, that Silver becomes Randall. Like, he had to help the one-legged dude, and then they all, at the end, offer help the one-legged dude when they're going to chop him off. When they're going to chop it off in that scene, and they're like, the crew will look after you, and that's what they said about Randall. He's become Randall. The Randall is dead reveal is like a big like man.
Terrible. I didn't believe it, because I was like, oh, I remember Randall. He dies like way later, right? Nope, he died right there. It was terrible. I miss him
again. The killing, because this is the section for the other crewmates. It is interesting because I remembered most of where the like recognizable members of the crew died. Like, I remembered the cool jumping out black dude with the scary face. I know Vane. I remembered Vane killed him at the end of episode 9. And I remembered that Randall died there in the initial attack too. It is cute that like they can have these moments of like, oh, their reoccurring background crewmates dying. Like, actually a little sad. I remembered that Charlotte and Logan died by Anne and everything like that. I remember the little bald dude drowns at the beginning of the next season. Remember that, Ari? That's some sad shit.
The bald dude? I don't
the little
even know
bald man's going to drown and you're going to cry, Ari.
Yeah,
so
I'm
sad.
Sure.
Silver's right there and he's trying everything to save him, but he's just like caught and he slowly drowns because he's caught underneath like a cannon. Oh, it's so sad.
Terrible.
We cut back to it like 3 times in that episode.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. But indeed, the other members is dying and stuff, and I cut you off when you were going to do Silver something.
Silver? Don't worry, I got a bunch of points here. We can pick any of them. The first, I guess, one of the things he does this season is create his daily standoff, right? Where he'll talk and like, bang his foot in the ground twice, and everyone just listens to him, and it's great. That's it. Another good thing to say.
The slow development of that over the season.
Flint doesn't believe him, but he does it, and it's awesome.
Yeah. He has the fake story about growing up in an orphanage that I think he reveals later is fake in a later season, where he has like 3 different backstories that he's been saying. That's also in something else that I can't remember. Where it's like, oh, all of his... maybe I'm just thinking of the fucking Joker and his fake backstories, but maybe it was something else. It's so good, and like there's like a shot of it's at the beginning of like episode 7 or something, and we haven't seen it in a while, and like everybody's doing it, and that's like the cut to it, and everybody's stomping their foot, and they're all into it. It's like, oh, great, and then he starts monologuing on Flint's behalf. It's all good. It's all great. It's slowly developing. It's such a nice little touch.
Yeah, I also just remembered the line with like I think it's Billy saying it, or someone is saying it about like how Mr. Scott is like the preferred choice, and then like, but everyone knows that like Mr. Scott is the person they should vote for, but everyone has the person they want to vote for.
Silver is the one they want to vote for.
Yeah, it's so great, and it's like always the person who wants it will, or the person who should have it will always concede to the person who wants it, or something like that. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't remember that Scott was with them in Charlestown. That was actually a thing that I didn't remember, but
yeah.
And that he was quartermaster for a time. I didn't remember any of that.
And he sees also, through who can remember from Silver. Like, he's the man who's like, he's telling a story and he can achieve anything with it. Yeah.
Him and Billy are sort of like laughing at his fakeness, though. They're like, that came from this other dude's story and this other dude's story, and they're kind of laughing about it. But then they get serious and like, man, he could be a problem if he ever turns against us.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
But who can forget the classic line from the gossip column? Also, the gossip column all comes from Miranda, which is a cute little touch.
Yeah.
But also it's a tease that he's going to lose his leg because he like is tapping his leg like he will when he stomps Dufresne's fucking head in.
Yep. I remember that one.
That's coming next season. What a prick this new Dufresne is, by the way. Not likable like the old Dufresne at all.
It's interesting. Like, he is a big presence in that he's so tall, and like he just seems a lot bigger than the last guy. It's interesting. Yeah, and his face is
there's something
like,
great about the last Dufresne that this one just doesn't have.
The thing to me, it's really weird in that to me they look pretty similar, but to me it's just so hard to reconcile them as the same character for some reason.
Yeah,
it's weird. Yeah. It doesn't usually happen to me with other things where they
have different hair.
Yeah,
but they just have different voices and different ways of enunciating things. I don't know. It's unavoidable. The dude died.
Yeah,
so can't really blame the show, but yeah, there is.
Then you got Dario Naharis.
It's just like I really liked Dufresne in season 1. I'm like, even when he's turning against Flint at the end, I'm still like, yeah, Dufresne, he's pretty cool. But this was dude, I'm like, what a fucking prick the whole time. Who's gonna kill this prick? We're gonna kill this prick later.
Yeah.
Also, from the gossip column, who can forget the dairy goat story? And the dude jumps up and says, "You fucked the dairy goat," and he says it in a funny way.
Yep.
Who can forget that one?
Great. Love it.
A classic. I remember Blind Wave dying at that moment.
Yes. Goddamn Blind Wave. I've been watching their reactions for this season as well. It's great. They have a lot of pretty bad takes for some things. Like they're not a big fan of Max and Eleanor a lot of times, but I don't know. Like,
yes, I do remember that.
It's definitely enjoyable to watch their reactions.
Better than the Normies one, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
The poor Normies will never live that one down. But
yep. Actually,
that was your first opener.
No, talking about reactions, I did also look up.
There are a bunch.
No, not in terms of. I looked up the Reddit threads for when the episodes were actually coming out. I only read like one of them, the one about the scene with Anne standing up for very long. It's that one scene where she's about to like become a prostitute or whatever. Because I was like, I wonder what people think about that. And so many people in the discussion thread were like, I'm not a fan of this Anne story. Can we have less Anne? Like, why she's so boring? And I never realized how much people hated her. It's crazy. Because she's one of the standouts of this season for me. But, yeah.
I've seen people deride that storyline specifically of the Anne, Max, and Jack stuff and thinking it was boring. But what a bunch of morons.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Silver. Other than that, I always see the Max hate and Eleanor to a bit of a lesser degree. But
yep.
Fuck them people.
Absolutely.
Back to John Silver, I guess.
John Silver. So, talking about Max here, I love his relationship with Max, where it's like she.
This is one of my only.
You take it then. Go ahead.
Oh fuck! Now I gotta find it. But I completely forgotten that Max and Silver had such like a connection, and they came back to each other. And the moment when they reunite, and like he's so like, great. "Oh, I was looking for the madam," and she's like, "I'm the madam, bitch," but actually she's like really sad about it. The other madam comes back. Can you believe that? I almost forgot about that. Yeah. But when it happened, I was like, man, I actually do remember this. But then when they hatched the plan for the Urka thingy and they're back on the same side, and it's like, oh, how cute. They're back.
It is.
The boys are back. It's so cute.
To me, it reminds me a lot of something that happens in Vinland Saga, where you've got like these two people who they know each other before they gain all this power, and it's like you've got like Silver and
Are you talking about
Max? I don't know if I want to spoil it. Yeah, you got Thorfinn and Canute, And it's like those two knew each other before they had any power, and now look at them now, and they're coming back together, and it's like it's just such an interesting dynamic here, where they're like they can be truthful to each other because they know each other very well. It's cute.
Yeah, it really is like an understated connection, and I like it a lot. Hold on. Yeah. Oh, I found the note. Max and Silver reuniting is something I didn't expect to be as into as I was. True and base.
Yep.
But that's the only note I had because my notes are small.
Yep. Love it.
But it's fucking sick.
Absolutely. They conspire together. Just like they did at the beginning of the show.
Oh, hold on. Awesome. It goes even further because Silver comes back and he sees the bodies and they sort of hatch the plan.
Yes, yeah.
That's also great. Before the Urka stuff. And them just scheming like that. How good.
Yep.
How good is John Silver?
He is pretty great. I do remember the first time I watched through, I think he was probably my favorite up there. I mean, Flint has always been my favorite, I think, just because he's so charismatic, but Silver was the one where I was like, yeah, I love Silver a lot. But here I am liking him again, but we'll see if I hate him when he becomes good next season, so loving people. Silver, so what else can we talk about? I guess more the last thing about like his relationship with the crew is that Flint tells him that this is the one place where he matters, right? Like that's another contributing factor.
Yes.
Like where
the fuck else will you go where you matter?
Exactly.
So good.
Yeah.
Every time Flint says fuck, it's so good.
Yep. Flint is great. So is Silver. Silver just is, and also we talked a little about his backstory, but to me it's just interesting. Like the fact that I know last season he was like translating some Spanish stuff, and it's just such a, like, even that, just like a small detail. It's like, I wonder what's like, who is this guy, you know?
What a life this prick must have led.
Yeah.
Because he even brings up like, I used to be on a slave ship and we went to Charlestown. But I think that's one of the things that Mr. Scott is like, that's some fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Who could he have been? He could have been any man.
Yeah.
Could have been every man.
Anyway,
but yeah,
that's Silver. No, and him and his blue eyes.
That kind of ties into his slyness, right? Of like, you can never tell where he is, and like, because I feel like that reveal that he like fucked Flynn over was like shocking. Oh, there's also that great scene where he's like, oh, your vote tally is like something to something, but there's like one vote that I need your help like doing out, and he's like, it's my vote. That scene I've also seen in a bunch of other things where it's like, me, I'm the problem. You thought I was on your side automatically, but I'm the one that you need to convince. And then, and it's actually, in retrospect, it's like super obvious that Silver doesn't buy it because Flint has like one line to him or like two lines, and he's not like confident Flint about it. And then Silver just seemingly agrees, but at the end of that episode, that's when it's revealed that like, he's hatched the plan with these blokes and crazy stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Hornigold last season, where it's like, I'm listening to them. But he doesn't say it outright this time. But yeah, good old Hornigold.
You got a whole section on Hornigold, so we'll wait until we get there to talk about.
Well, that's right now. Can you believe it? Unless you have any more Silver or other crew stuff.
No,
I guess the only other crewmate.
Billy's got
Billy.
Section,
that's what I was gonna say. He doesn't have a section. So,
does he not?
Yeah, we should probably.
Oh, my boy Billy. I like Billy a lot more than I did. I remember the scheme that he and Dufresne had, and I actually thought Billy was in on the scheme.
So
I was like,
did I.
This traitorous Billy prick. Because at the end, Billy is sort of a bad guy.
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, is this the seeds for it? But like and Billy talks a little differently to show like he's been tortured. But every time with Billy in this, I was like, man, Billy's pretty cool. On that moment where Vane like tries to retcon the beginning, he's like, man, we were trying to get Singleton to do this thing so we could get you, Billy. It's such a cool moment.
Yeah, it is.
Even if I don't buy it at all, but it's like, man, fucking my boy Billy, and he's like loyal to a fault after Billy told him to go fuck
that was
himself.
great delivery. Yeah.
And when they pick up Silver, and he's like, that's our brother you got there or something. It's like, this Billy fella, what a good bloke.
He came back in the season quicker than I remembered. Like he
that's
comes back.
My other note, right?
Oh, really?
I didn't remember that Billy being alive happened so early, episode 2.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, my flip side on that is that Lowe died later than I thought, because I thought Lowe died a lot quicker. So too. Yeah. But it's like it's pretty late into the season, like 4 or 5
end of
or something.
episode 4, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not in 5. Because
Flint, it wouldn't be 5.
It might be the end of 3, actually. I think you might be overstating it.
I don't know. It's another Storm situation. I'll take your word for it. Episode 3.
I'm checking right now. Episode 3. Upload this up. Do you have a section on Lowe, by the way? Or I guess the Vane section we can talk about in there, because he never interacts with Flint because he's done.
Yeah.
Yes. might not even know. He's already gone at the end of episode 3 because we're getting because that's fire.
Well, I can tell you it's not episode 2, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he does die, but it's like 40 minutes into episode 3.
Crazy. Look at him surviving that long. Yeah, we'll talk about him later. Yeah, let's not talk about.
But hold on.
Yep.
We were talking about Billy.
Yes. Billy Bones.
Everything with Billy is what a nice prick. Him talking. Oh, there's a great moment where it's like where he's like shocked that Silver is still like that Silver's still around and that he's being given a mission or whatever, and he's there with Randall and they've taken him and they've chained him up. And Silver sort of implies that like if Billy doesn't do what he wants, he's going to kill him or something. And earlier in the scene, Randall had responded to Billy by being like, "We like him." And then like the final line in the scene is him saying to Silver this time, "We like him too."
Yeah.
Pointing at Billy. And
what a delivery as well. We like him. Yeah. Randall is just great. It is also
what a fellow.
On Randall, have you ever heard his actor like talk in an interview or anything?
No.
I feel like it'd be so weird to hear that.
Yeah.
He's like one of those characters where it's like he is Randall. Like it'd be strange. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Hornigold. You ready?
Oh, we're already up to him.
Yep,
I've given up on Billy so early.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that is all the Billy stuff, though.
Yeah, I mean, he comes back. He's a good guy now.
Oh, there's one Billy and Flint scene where Flint's like, because actually, that's when they reveal that like, oh, really, Flint might know what actually happened, but Billy doesn't even know what actually happened, but he doesn't care because he cares more about the war that's coming. And there's a Flint line where he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" or something. And it's like, oh, that's so good. And they have like a conversation there, so good. Also, just a little side note, they bring up Gates a lot more than I remembered, and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah. I was interested. I was glad we got a little bit of Gates' backstory. Like that was really interesting. How like like he met him. He was the first man he met in a bar or something, and he's like, "I'm gonna." It was just interesting with Flint. Anyway.
Yeah, and then because it's implied that he like leaves his crew like a Featherstone leaves his crew to like do a new thing with Jack, whereas that's seemingly what happened with Flint and Gates.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yep.
Cool little parallel, but yeah.
Him and his Illuminati.
Right, now we can go to my main man, Hornigold. He just wants his fort back, and nobody's giving him his fucking fort back.
That's his whole thing.
He just wants to sit in his chair, and like Vane took it from him.
It's
those
so funny.
animals that he commands.
He cracks me up. Him and his fort. Like
he just gets fucked over at every turn, and then he ends up being a bad guy, and you're like, man.
Yeah.
Well,
he was driven to it.
Then he arrests Eleanor.
But okay. So, but he has a point. All right, with Flint. Where he's talking about how like your word basically means nothing. Like you will do whatever you want to achieve what you want. And
he has that whole speech.
Yeah.
When a man something. When a man something.
Yeah.
He just keeps going. It's like
yeah. So
what a storyteller.
I think to me those are the two facets of Hornigold. Like him wanting his fort, and then him actually seeing Flint for like what he is, I guess.
Yeah, and
he's kind of right. Like that's the thing. That's the point.
Yeah. Because he even says that in like the first season, right? He doesn't like Flint. He's like, he's arrogant and I don't like him. He says it to Gates or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like consistent that he doesn't really like Flint, but then he's put on his side because Flint is very mad at Vane and Hornigold is very mad at Vane. Oh, the scene when they first come ashore, and I think this is also a Flint and Silver scene where they're like, what the fuck is Hornigold doing down here? And they're like, and then you see like Mr. Scott and stuff. That's like a great shot.
Yep.
And it's just like they've come back to some shit, and Vane is in the fort. How cool!
Yep, poor Hornigold. And then he captures
Eleanor. Do you have anything else for him?
Not really. Like that's literally it.
At the end.
Yeah, I guess.
I really like that actor. The way he says his words, it's like everything in Black Sails. They always. Oh, I actually did, and we didn't actually talk about this, and we skipped over this thing. There's one bad Flint monologue.
Really?
Where he's talking about the fucking warship, and it's just kind of awkward every time he says it.
Wait, really? The reason I like that...
you liking Sheave the fucking Steel. It's just
come on.
I think that's the same problem in both scenes, where it's like a weird fucking...
No, but in this scene, the point, like at least why I like it, is that it makes his men laugh, right? In the end. Are we talking about, we're talking about episode 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like he keeps repeating it, and then the final time he says it, the crew laughs a little bit, and not a lot, but it kind of shows that he's like winning them over a little bit with his like charisma, you know, in the speech that you hate. But I don't know, I can see what you mean, but I enjoyed it.
I like the concept. I like he's like nobody else has even given a thought to stealing the warship, but like Flint obviously is going to steal the fucking warship. That's my boy Flint. Of course he's going to do it. But yeah. Oh, I have another light Flint.
No.
You don't have to put a timestamp thing, all right? We'll talk about this for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But Flint having no relief in being allowed to live and knowing that he will gain his captaincy is the coolest, most Flint thing ever at the end of episode 2. What an end. Where having Silver say it for him makes it even cooler, where Silver is going on whenever somebody goes on a monologue that's about somebody else that's positive is the coolest fucking thing ever, where it's like, and especially when they're monologuing to the person they're talking about, and the only reason it's cool is because there's an audience listening through us, where it's like, and I think you're the greatest fucking man that ever existed, so you're gonna have this fucking idiots all back underneath your fucking yoke in 3 fucking seconds, and then Flint just like smirks or something or looks at him, and the episode ends and you're like, man, this is the coolest television show I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a weird Flint thingy that you're gonna have to put a timestamp that says continued.
No. Yep. I'll just put it in the Hornigold section. It's all good.
Fuck it. My boy Hornigold deserves more of a section, and we'll bolster it by putting Flint.
Yeah, people look at the timeline. They're like, "Why is Hornigold section so long?"
God, Hornigold's gonna become such a cunt next season, and it's gonna break my heart. Do you remember there's a scene where him and Eleanor like make a deal?
Him and Eleanor
next season, which after she comes back and like he's sitting in her fucking bar or whatever, and like they have like a moment where she sits down and asks him for a favor, and they have like this fuck you, but all right, I'll help you. And it's really good.
Nope, not at all.
Because I think Hornigold comes with Rogers. He's like his right hand man for like all the Nassau stuff. So he's like back there, and they must have kicked Max out or something, and Eleanor's back there. Yeah. Eleanor has to be in a dress for the rest of the show, Ari. She's so much better in the
That's crazy.
Pirate clothes. Her dumb green woman. Dress, it makes me mad.
What color
the dresses are so bad, Ari. Fuck civilization.
I mean,
they all push the boobs up. That's okay, but like the rest of them look so like even all of Max's dresses look bad. Not as in they're a show bad thing, but like the time.
Maybe they can't afford more expensive. I don't know. Dresses, I guess.
Costuming?
No. I mean, in universe.
No, because I'm talking specifically about the expensive dresses, like the nobility dresses, like all of Abigail's dresses and everything. I'm just like, man, this shit looks fucking dumb.
Yeah.
It's like the wigs. It's just like, man,
society.
Terrible. Eleanor in a pirate shirt or whatever. No, that's some shit. That's some good costuming.
Yep.
God, Eleanor and Woods Rogers, they're gonna fuck next season. It's so good.
Oh no,
it's so good.
Yeah, but he's an evil man.
I love it. Their relation. Yeah, but he's an evil man in season 4. We can love him in season 3 like I did last.
Yeah, until he touches Blackbeard, then we can eat him.
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait for Blackbeard. Okay, anyway, so, well, guess what? Next section: Eleanor, Vane, and Abigail. I don't know why Abigail is here, but here we are.
Here's sort of a big point here. Oh, it's so good. My boy Vane, what a simp. He even admits it, and I love him for it. What a lover boy. Relatability. I love him too.
Yep. Excellent.
And I love her too. And Abigail we love more than we should too.
Yep.
What a love fest.
Is there anyone on this show you don't like?
I
think I didn't like
that shot Barlow.
Okay, no, that's true. I was gonna say the guy with Silver that kills the other guy that was conspiring with Silver.
Oh, he's like the most like something about.
Yes, he's something off about him.
Have much. We learn about this slightly in film class, but the way that like you can just look at certain characters and be like, that's an evil prick. Like the costume design or the character designing of that is like something I don't like understand. Like if you made me write a video and breaking it down, I wouldn't understand. But there's just something about this, both of them, where like, and you don't recognize it like initially, but once you sort of get to know them and just their demeanors, you're like, these are the worst people. Like Sylvia chose the worst people. Like this prick definitely killed this prick, and he's just like. It's just like something about his hair and him being short, and it's a bunch of little elements that like I don't like him.
Yep.
And it's such great character design, I guess. But yeah.
So that's
I get what you mean intrinsically, and I feel like everybody gets it intrinsically, and that's the beauty of it.
Perfect. Yeah, leave a comment, guys. Tell us how much you get it.
Yes.
Perfect.
Say I get it.
Yeah.
Comment.
And then put a timestamp for right now.
Yes, do this.
All right.
Vane and stuff. We're talking
Yes,
about Vane and Eleanor,
Vane.
my favorite.
So to start off, Lo, what have I written here? Lo is set up like the major villain, but he dies quickly. Yeah, we also talked about that last time, but it is such a good subversion.
The subversion of killing off evil pirate dude works because they set up eventual conflicts that you think will be addressed later on, but throw them out once the bloke is dead. Now, I can't remember what the conflicts they set up are, because they set up him and his quartermaster, but that gets resolved when he cuts his fucking head off with the little knife. What a scene that is in the bar. Yep. And then he kills the guard dude. Yeah. That's cool. That's the opposite of the dude we were just talking about, where you look at that dude and you like him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's very loyal and he'll look after Eleanor. And
yes. Yeah. What plot threads did they set up that they set up him and Vane, and then they make Vane almost seem scared of him, but he's not. He's gonna fucking kill this prick.
Yeah.
I think it's an Eleanor thing or something, but they set up a bunch. There's like a thing where it's an indication of like, you're like, oh, you recognize in your mind, like that's going to come back way later. But it doesn't come back way later because he's fucking dead. It's such a great subversion. Yeah. Also the build up is like, you feel like Eleanor feels vulnerable because Flint isn't in town and Flint's whole crew isn't in town. And you're like, oh, when Flint gets back, he's going to set this prick right. But Flint, he's dead before Flint even gets there.
Yep.
It is interesting that season 2 and 3 both have like 3. I think it is only 3 episodes in this season, but I think in next season it's like 5 or 6 episodes where Flint is not in Nassau at the beginning.
And that's when everything goes bad.
Yeah, it kind of is. Huh? But yes, this Ned Lowe prick. What a subversion of this whole character.
Talking about the
I love the way he talks. I have no idea why, but the way he talks, it's acted like slightly differently from everybody else on the show. It's like breathy, and it's in other things too. I always say that it's in other things. I recognize it as a pattern that I've seen elsewhere.
Mad Men, right?
I just think it's so cool. No, it's not Mad Men at all. They talk very differently in that show. I feel like it might be a Last of Us 2 thingy or something, but I can't place it at all. It's more that area. Though I always compare how the dialogue is written in Last of Us to Mad Men. I'm all over the shop, Ari. I don't know what I'm thinking half the time.
Lo. So Lo. Okay, Kyle, we're going to talk about the scene where Lo kills Eleanor's bodyguard, and Vane is just standing there, and he doesn't do anything.
Because you feel...
Yeah, you're like, Vane, come on, do something, Vane. Not even that. At least I don't think I ever got the impression he's scared. I think to me it's, and probably to you, I'd guess, is that the fact that Eleanor is like looking to him, right? And he's just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's just so like... I don't know. I don't even know why it works so well.
She's vulnerable.
Yeah, she is vulnerable, and she's looking to him, and he's not going to do anything.
Here and do this?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
yeah, it's fucking sick. What a scene! He cuts the head off, and it's like, ugh, gross.
Yep. And then
I remembered that he cut the head off of the bodyguard, so I was kind of relieved when it was just the quartermaster.
Yep. Yeah. The other guy got stabbed through the head. Right. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. There's something much more visceral about the other kill, I think.
Oh, this is the crabs and pregnancy talk all over again. I don't know.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Next point. So I guess on Vane, I guess this whole season he's being put against Flint, right? Like it's essentially him versus Flint, and then they come together at the end. And similar to Hornigold, he is like another person who knows that Flint... who I guess sees through Flint and all his talk and says how like his promises are just promises, right? Like they're not delivering anything. Like why are you listening to Eleanor? He's just like he's promising things that are difficult to define and hard to achieve.
I think Vane is just a very stupid is the wrong word, but he's like very. Like Vane is the type of bloke to not believe snow exists unless he sees it. Like he's a very
materialist.
Practical is not the right word, and I thought materialist, but that's not really the right word either.
Pragmatist. No.
He's a very physicalist. He's got to see things. He's got to be like, because at some point he's like, "Can you put Nassau's future in my hand or something?" You're like, "No, you idiot! It's a concept."
Yeah.
But like in his stupidity, he knows that like it's reductive, but he realizes that in the reductiveness, there is a point being made.
Yeah.
Fuck, I forgot completely where I was going with this. But there's a big thematic thing of like Flint is sort of, there's like, if we do one of my graph things that I do in Paint, like Eleanor is on one end and Vane is on the other. Of Eleanor wants a legitimate future for the place. And that's like her goal the entire season. And Vane is like, fuck no, don't bring England back. We're not going to be a colony or something. We are free right now. I love being a pirate. I am a pirate. Fuck these pricks. I'll kill them all when they show up.
Yep.
I don't want to build a future for this place through this mean. And Flint sort of is on Eleanor's side, and then progressively throughout the season, really only at the very end, it's pushed to Vane's side of like, let's go get the Urk gold. Let's fuck up Charlestown. Where this is the point of no return. We're not rebuilding anything here. And it is a great like almost coincidence that like they both are on the same side when they are both on the same side. When they are both literally on the same side in the narrative, they have now both become on the same side thematically, and they will actually be pretty good friends for the rest of the show. Especially like, well, Vane dies at the end of next season, so it can't be past that. But it is cool, and it is such a great because there's like a tease in the middle of the season that they might end up being on the same side, but they are fundamentally opposed in their approaches. Because Flint is much more on the Eleanor side. Especially at that point, he's at the height of his optimism. Barlow is there and telling her all this shit about how he's got to give the daughter back and everything, and Peter will help him. But yeah, it's a neat thing. And them, but the point is that them finally getting on the same side is fucking
sick.
Shit! It's the fucking two dudes. It's the sick duo, the new sick duo in town.
Two capable antagonists coming together.
Yes. Fucking sick. How did we get here?
So we were talking about Vane being pitted against Flint the whole season. So that's the whole point.
And then till the end.
Yep.
They reunite against the bigger enemy.
You know who doesn't reunite together is Eleanor and Vane, because
all this stuff is so good, Ari.
Yeah.
So good.
So
when she steals Abigail and he's like, "There is absolutely nobody you won't betray."
Yeah.
And you're like,
so yeah, on that
like
scene,
that,
it's so great how firstly, the fact that she can't open the door is like such a like humiliating kind of like I don't know,
what a woman moment.
Yeah, it's like to Abigail, who she's trying to like impress in a way, you know, she's trying to save her and be this cool like rescuer, and she can't open the door. It's just so like pathetic and sad.
She's freaking out. You can hear the footsteps coming, tension's building.
And then it's revealed that it's Vane, and he's coming down slowly. And I'm sure he could like try and force open that door and everything, but he doesn't. And
he's not. He doesn't want to. He wants her. He wants to convince her against Flint, but he can't.
Yeah,
he's in love. It's so beautiful.
It is so beautiful, so great. And you're betraying him, like you said.
Yes, it's such a good line. But the other point is, this is something we touched on, and I said would come back up in this season. But Eleanor only fucks him when he does what she wants, like when he kills Lo, I think, or at some point he agrees with her again, and she's like back with him, and it's like, God, this is such a toxic relationship, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious me. They're in the worst, deepest love.
Yep. Not anymore, I don't think.
Oh, there's also my last note is about Vane makes good on fucking Adele now that he has the power. Because in season 1, if you remember, there's a very provocative scene where she is on her knees in front of him and like supposed to be tending to his wounds or whatever. And it's very sexually charged, but Vane is like too sad and not happy about it. And that's when he decides that he's going to go and get his crazy dudes and come back and fuck up Eleanor. And he's mad. Like,
I didn't remember that was Adele.
Like,
that it makes sense.
Yes, that is. And then and there's another great scene where it's like, Eleanor shows some vulnerability for a second where she pretends she's not jealous at the beginning, and then like Vane sends Adele out because they're sleeping together in the fort to get like she leaves and says, "I'll get some water or something." She leaves. And Vane is just like sitting there, he's naked and everything, gets dressed in front of her, and she's screaming at him for not showing up for a meeting or some shit.
Yep.
And they have a little cute we're in love argument. And then as Eleanor's leaving, because it doesn't end well, and she's like, "Fuck you, Charles," and then Adele walks back in and she's like, "Fuck you too," and she leaves, and Adele makes a face or whatever. It's just such a cute little moment. I love it so much.
Yep. Adele is more of a character than I remembered.
She becomes more of a character increasingly in the future too.
Interesting.
And my goodness gracious me, if she isn't the prettiest girl I ever saw in my life, and I'm very happy that she's around. This Featherstone prick, can you believe him?
Yep.
Oh, there's such a great... Did we already talk about the Jack stuff?
No.
So I guess Featherstone is there.
Yeah.
But the Featherstone line, like when he's outside the fort and he's like, "I'm in love with a good woman."
Yeah.
And Jack's like, "Adele?" question mark. And he's like, "Yeah." And then he just folds his arms and is like, he kind of knows, but he doesn't want to think about it too much. And it's just like, what a manipulation they pulled in this thing.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think they do end up kind of being in love.
I I don't remember.
Because I remember she's like sad when he nearly dies at one point.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good
I
bloke.
think they both
I
survive
like
at the
him.
end. Like Featherstone becomes the governor at the end, right? It's like the meme.
What? I don't remember
I'm
that at all.
almost
That's so funny.
guaranteeing you that happens. But yeah, like because Max runs it from the background, but Featherstone is like the front office because they need a white dude. And because Featherstone is like has Cloud on the island, but nobody knows who Featherstone is because he's not a big pirate, so he's like the perfect.
He deserves it. He's done nothing wrong, right?
Yes. And Adele might be his lady wife.
Perfect.
What a love story. Unlike Eleanor and Vane, there's comes good in the end. But I think the tragedy of the Eleanor and Vane one makes it better.
Yep. So,
do you have any other scenes to point out that I can rant about for 15 minutes?
I'm sure
they are?
It'll get up there. We'll find something else. But for now, we've got Eleanor. No, sorry, we got
all my notes are done.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, we got one more section left. So in this Eleanor section, we've got Vane becoming anti-Eleanor, right, when she betrays him. And at the same time, after that, we get Vane killing Eleanor's dad, and then Eleanor becoming quite anti-Vane.
Yes.
And then
Eleanor goes off the deep end after that.
Yeah.
I feel like we should talk more about the Eleanor and her father stuff.
Yeah. So I have a note in my notes saying, so Eleanor felt a bit overshadowed this season for me. So what try and convince me, like what happened with her and her dad that is interesting, I guess.
They just like they actually have a good moment because her dad isn't like an evil person. That's pretty well established from the beginning. He's just sort of a bad dad sometimes, and I don't know if that. I think is this the season where it's like it's the manure from which I sprouted or something, or was that last season? Do you remember this line?
I remember the line, so I don't know which season it was.
I think it might be the beginning of this season, though I feel like Richard only shows up in like episode 5 or something. But they have like a fight, and then I don't know, this might be the first season too, where Eleanor makes him admit that like he abandoned her to like the interior because he was coping with her mom's death.
Yep.
Last time Spain raided, which is interesting because her husband will make Spain raid again later. And then I think she ends up dying from that, right?
Yep.
Little parallel there, but yeah, it's basically like them working through their issues and having like a happy moment, only to have him die the next episode because Vane wants to get back at him, at Eleanor, and like he's never going to do anything to her directly, so he has to by proxy. And later, because Vane and Eleanor have a final scene before Vane is killed, and they bring up like, you killed my father, like right as I was getting the chance to like have a relationship with him or something, and that's like the big thing Eleanor brings up, and it's like, that's cool. I don't know, just them like them being separated, and then like Richard has like this monologue where he's like, I know you're a smart girl, like you're trying to figure out where my wants differ from yours or something, but you're scarce finding it or something. It's like, oh cool, he actually is trying to meme and help her. It's like, oh my goodness. And and I don't know, I liked all the Richard stuff. Like he has a scene with Barlow again, which is good, and it's like a callback to their relationship from season 1.
That is true.
And I think he has one with Flint, and it's all like cool moments. Like I forgot about most of that.
He's the one who points out how the two goals are opposed, right? Like the Urca and the Charlestown. Yeah, true.
Yeah, because Spain and England aren't at war anymore, so they have like a tense relationship, and yeah, that was such a cool little politicking detail. But him coming up with that when nobody else would see it makes him seem like smart and stuff, because it goes back and forth on whether or not he's like a fuck up or he's actually kind of in charge and stuff like that. And I like that sometimes he makes good decisions, sometimes he makes bad decisions. But I don't know, just like what is it that precedes the moment where they kind of hug on the balcony? I can't remember. I think it's her rescuing Abigail. I
don't remember.
Yeah, she rescues Abigail and she comes back down, and that's when Flint and everybody sail off, and they're left behind, and they look over at the sunset, and they cuddle a little bit. Oh, it's so cute.
Well, perfect.
I don't know. I really like that moment. It's like long and drawn out. I like the long shot of just them standing there, and then eventually the two phases of him putting his hand on her, and then and then the embrace. I don't know, it's cute. They're both very stoic, but they break down the barriers or whatever through that scene. So that's my Richard defense. And then he gets killed.
He does by Vane. And I am a genius.
And her reaction to it is great. Like because the original thing you were talking about was Eleanor getting overshadowed, and I kind of get it. But by the end, like after that, she kind of goes at the deep end, right? She like becomes a character to dislike. She's going to kill Rackham, Anne, and Max, and she's going to do all of this, and yeah, she's a deep dark girl because her father is dead. Oh, and we were speculating on whether or not the preacher comes back or what, but he's actually in a few scenes.
Yeah. He scares me every time. I still don't know why. He hasn't done anything bad yet.
It's another one of those immediate seeing things, and you're like, I don't like this bloke.
It's great, everything to do with that guy.
Character design is what I'm going to call it.
Beautiful. You can invent that term. So, next point. I just think it's so it's not funny, but it's like kind of funny how everyone is just so concerned for Vane after Eleanor like takes Abigail, and there's like a few different people who are like, oh, do you think Vane, like obviously his the struggle is going on in that fort because we never see it, right? Like we skip basically the next time we see him is after Richard's dead.
Because Vane says like, oh, it'll be my death sentence.
Yeah, this will be the end of me or something. And yeah, so obviously Eleanor's worried, and then Jack is worried, and it's funny and cute, and I mean it's not really funny. I don't know why I say it's funny. It just cracks me up for some reason. But
it's funny because of the payoff that he's fine.
Yeah, I guess.
Not even in the fort.
Yeah. And it's just everyone like caring for this like
it
quote
is
unquote evil man.
Eleanor,
You know?
Eleanor inflicted this on him, but she's also concerned.
So is Charles okay in there? You think?
Yeah. You know who also was a recurring character that I didn't remember much of? The one merchant dude who like in the last episode he's who Max has to buy the establishment from.
Oh yes.
Because he's in the first season, and I remembered him from the famous reaction Blind Wave had to the painting scene where it's like
what a scene.
Apple. Yes. What a scene. And I remembered him from that, but I didn't remember him from much else. But he's still there, and I don't know if he'll be in season 3, but I think he might have sold his stuff and left. That might be the last we see of him, but he was in it a lot more. Him and Eleanor even have some singular scenes, or it's just the two of them.
Yeah.
And, I didn't remember that at all, but yeah.
I guess an interesting thing when I was looking up the episode discussions, apparently, you know the carpenter guy that Anne almost sleeps with? Apparently he shows up in seasons 3 and 4 somehow, like in the background.
I think I remember him dying now. I vaguely remember there's like a scene on a hill where it's like Billy or something might be the antagonist, and he has a standoff with somebody and they get killed. I remember vaguely remembering that while watching an episode and being like, man, I feel like I don't remember everything about Black Sails. It's wild.
Crazy. So much happens. So much to keep in mind.
I remember him becoming a bit more of a prick.
Terrible. Maybe he was always like that, and we were just seeing it through Anne's lens or something. All right, anyway, so last point on this Eleanor, Vane, Abigail. So anything you can think of, go ahead. But the last point is just the simple point we've talked about many times, I'm sure, which is that Vane originally wants the Man of War, but then he realizes that civilization is coming and that they need to band together with Flint, and then he decides to save Flint. So that's just
Billy also has that realization at some point in the season where he's like, you were right, civilization is coming.
Yeah, like they don't see the difference between you and me.
Oh, yes, he does, because they think because Vane's got control of the ship, and the dork on the boat comes back and says, Captain Flint or whatever, which is interesting because at the beginning they mistake Flint for Vane, so it's sort of the reverse of that.
That's a good point.
What a television show.
Layers of writing.
Parallels and things.
Anything else?
Anything else on Eleanor,
Vane, Abigail. I guess Vane treats Abigail nicely, which is interesting. He'll be like, no one will touch you, you know? Small thing.
I remember loving the early Woods Eleanor stuff. I remember that like carrying season 3 to me.
I guess
because remember, I did used to say season 3 was my least favorite one.
You coward! You got Blackbeard.
I don't know
the best character of ever. All right.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But man, these two, like, the sexual chemistry immediately, Ari. It's beautiful.
Okay, good.
Eleanor, she can do it with anybody, apparently. She even had it with Flint for a while. Remember that stuff?
Crazy. Yeah, forehead kiss. My goodness.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, everyone go watch this video on the Kyle Entertainment channel. What a video. What a great video.
I only mentioned the forehead kiss like for one line, right?
Yep.
Don't expect a deep dive into that. But
it's probably more than anyone's ever talked about. I'm excited for that
stuff. Yeah, potentially. That's like the thing I'm most looking forward to season 3,
Yep.
right?
All right.
Really million.
So let's.
Remember when you see their asses both at once?
No, I don't.
And they like walk into the bed after like giving in to the chemistry. Oh, it's gonna be so good.
Crazy.
I'm a simp for romance already.
The two evil people coming together, the king and the queen.
They're both good in season 3. All right. They didn't do nothing wrong.
All right. We'll see.
Just quietly. Vane is still growing on me. I like him more and more every time. It continued with season 2. I mentioned this last video, so
yep.
Vane's still very good.
Excellent.
He's climbing the character rankings.
Yeah, we'll do one at the end. It'll be great. Or at the end of the part 4 or whatever. Yeah, at the end of the show. All right. Now for the final section before the miscellaneous notes, which is Jack, Anne, and Max. And they're a big part of the season. Like, I would say a lot of, maybe like 30% of the season is them.
Something like that, yeah.
So the first thing is, I guess my first thing is just like a more general note, which I found really interesting. In that we're supporting Flint, but at the same time we're supporting like Jack and Anne and Max, and their goals are just completely opposite. And it's just so weird, and it kind of feeds in with your point you were talking about last time about about empathy and like the tone of a scene can kind of frame whether we're seeing something as good or bad, and in this case they make it so that we like both of these people. We want both of them to succeed. So interesting, right? It doesn't happen that often. But
yeah, this is very much laying the groundwork, and season 1 did a little bit, but of Jack being one of the fan favorite characters, like
yeah. I was thinking his line where it's like, oh, hear that? No women. What a line.
He has a bunch of little lines like that where it's really good. Like when Charlotte's trying to, I can't believe I remember Charlotte's name, right? But I do. When she's trying to draw the pirate flag, and obviously this is only paid off in the very end of the last episode, where he finally gets the flag he likes. Or I think he actually is disappointed with the flag again. But she's like getting mad at crowding and stuff, and he just has a bunch of great lines like that.
Yeah. Like with when he gets,
Jack is the Tyrion of this show.
So he actually is a great comparison. But I like when he's like gets raided by that captain, and he insists like, oh, and your flag. He's like, what's wrong with the flag? It's just great. Anyway, so in the season we get we get a bit of Jack's backstory. Well, we get the entirety, I guess, which is that he used his wits to build his name. And we hear more about that, I guess. at least what I remember when he's with Rogers in that cart, right?
Yes. Oh, that's next season. My goodness.
Yeah, that's a scene I remember so well when they rescue Jack. I remember thinking that was the greatest thing ever. But we'll see if it holds up.
That's where Vane gets captured, Ari.
Yeah, I do. I definitely remember that. And he was wearing his cool like mask thing, so they wouldn't know who it is, and it's great. Mm-hmm. All right, so before we talk about Anne. I don't have any direct notes on Featherstone, but anything you want to talk about him, I guess? Here. Yeah, he's interesting. He's a likable guy, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. I don't know what else to say about that. Him and Adele, that's a thing.
Yep.
He's because he could just be like he's an idiot in love thing, but he's like a genius navigator, which is something that's brought up, and he seems kind of self-aware about the Adele situation when he's actually questioned about it.
Yeah.
And he is very witty in scenes. Like I think the standout scene for this group is just a stupid scene where they're like trying to figure out how they're going to convince the crew to like take the holdout without telling them what it's for, because if they tell them what it's for, they'll leak it, and some other crew with the bigger ship will go and steal the Urca gold or whatever. And like it's him, Jack, and Max in Max's office, and he's like laying down, and clearly they've been there all day. This is a Mad Men scene where they're trying to think of an idea for an ad, and they're just sitting around, and everyone goes through a bunch of ideas, and just their reactions of like being unsatisfied with their ideas. There's something about that scene, and Featherstone particularly in that scene, that's like great. It's just like he's like, what if, and then it's just like, what if again, and it's what a funny fella.
Yep.
Great stuff.
Yep. All right. Anne's quest for self-identity, Kyle.
What a time.
I guess what I've got is that I went through and I've like kind of mapped out the kind of steps she takes here. And we can talk about that, I guess, maybe. But we'll see. So my first thing is just about the general idea of like what's going on with Anne this season is that she's trying to figure out who she is. Is that the way you take it? Like because essentially she's defined herself by Jack,
an identity
right?
crisis.
Yeah, and she wants to find out who she is on her own. Yeah, identity crisis. So
if she exists on her own.
True.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So episode 1, she starts out angry at Max when Max is trying to like not seduce her, but like get closer to her. And she's just so initially she's just starting out to fight that attraction, but then they kiss and
there's some repression there, I think.
Yeah, certainly. Then in episode 2, we get Anne. What is this? Okay, I'm gonna read this out. Anne leaves Jack. Oh, okay. Well, so Anne and Jack are sleeping together, right? And then Anne leaves and then goes to Max, and then Jack walks in the room, and says how
he has an idea.
He has an idea. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna use Max to find the info, and then we'll act on it, and we can build our own crew." And he's like, "You know what, darling? I've always just wanted you to be happy." And yeah, so it's a cute little scene.
Indeed, yes.
Then episode 3, we get Anne and Jack talking about Max, and essentially Anne is just telling Jack that she knows that Max is trying to get in her head, but she can't do anything to help it. Certainly interesting. Then
maybe for a bit.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting dynamic of like whether or not Max actually cares about Anne, or whether or not Anne actually cares about Max outside of just a sexual relationship. And then how Jack fits into it, and whether or not Anne is even attracted to men at all. And I guess this gets into her backstory, which she says later about how maybe Jack is like all she's ever known, and she hasn't thought of what she could be outside of him, or that she kind of feels like she owed it to him or something.
Yeah.
Because initially it is like Max is fucking with them, and it is kind of like manipulating around him. But obviously Max ends up actually being in love with Anne. I think it might be that Abyss thing again of like you pretend to do something for so long, like you end up actually being it. Like you can't. Again, this is like the identity thing of like you pretend until you become that person, and then like you're like fucked, and you're like, oh, what was I originally trying to do? That actually is brought up a lot in the Flint thing, which we didn't talk about that much. Was like him, like the person he is in totality going on trial, and they that he would have to like humble himself in front of everybody, and there it's like framed as like he would have to ask for England's forgiveness, which is something he very much didn't want to do in the first season. It's like, well, for the greater good, he kind of does want to do that to become that sort of great man that Miranda was talking about in the first time they meet, which I don't think we talked about that too much either. But she goes on like they have a general desire to make the world around them a better place, and that's why Thomas is a great man or something. And like Flint's is kind of a rejection of that, of like, fuck this, let's just break everything and fuck these guys. But yeah, so Max eventually does, and by the end of the season, like it's also a back and forth where she like at some point she says like, oh, I care, like I'm gonna protect Anne because when I was on the beach and nobody in the world cared about me, like she did or something. But that's like not evident at the beginning of the season, so it sort of shows that Max is sort of sometimes she's thinking about it, sometimes she isn't. Like it's kind of I don't know, it's sort of this is another like Mad Men Sopranos Boardwalk thing of like being a hypocrite constantly, and only like when you're made to think about something, you think about something, but sometimes you forget it in the haste of the moment, and when it's not convenient to you, you kind of repress it. And kind of read that into the Featherstone stuff, where he like doesn't want to think about the Adele situation too much because then he'll realize what it actually is. Sort of wants to live in ignorant bliss, and I feel like that's sort of like, well, when Max is pressed, she remembers and is thankful to Anne, but then she's also trying to manipulate Jack and Anne against each other and things like that. It sort of makes her more complicated too.
Yeah,
but I definitely think that's an interesting thing, especially the beginning when she's like she puts her finger in Jack's mouth or whatever to try and get Anne to be jealous, and it doesn't work. Anne actually does see through that, but then like he cheats on her in a different regard of like he values her as a money making commodity more than Anne, and that's really what sets Anne off. It's kind of interesting.
Absolutely. There's a lot going on. Okay, so
you're up to episode 3.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at what I was up to. So then episode 3, Anne goes to Max's room, but this time takes Jack with her. and she's implying that if Jack is there, then Max can't get to her. Then in episode...
Oh, another interruption.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Jack... It's interesting because Jack is sort of framed as the potentially jealous one we feel sorry for who's left out there, and eventually it'll be Anne. Max is never left out there, which is interesting. Also, Max has like the girl boss line of like, you would be surprised at what can change in 2 days in my bed or something. What a line.
Well, 2 episodes. Anyway, so...
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I was like, huh? But yes.
Yes, I'm a genius. Okay. Yep, episode 5 is when Jack chooses Max over Anne, and because the crew forces him to. Then episode 6, which is after Anne kills Charlotte, and that guy, Max says that she will shield her from the consequences. Interesting.
This first, the when the scene, it's very interesting again from like a portrayal or a viewer's perspective. Anne is very frightening in episode 5, when she's like, she is mad at shit and she's just sitting downstairs, and especially with Charlotte, because like, you like Charlotte, she's like funny and stuff, and she's but she like, especially when you know what's coming, like Anne like stalking her and then grabbing her and telling her to hurry up or something, and then she ends up killing her. It's like, Anne is I feel like that Anne had that vibe at like the first few episodes of season 1 where it's like, oh, she's really dangerous and like scary. And when she's like frightened and like defending herself, it's like it's very scary for Anne to be framed as sort of an antagonist generally in this situation.
Yeah.
What a scary girl. Oh, also, this has to be in an anime somewhere, but the incredible fucking shot after she's done it where it's just like her one really blue eye and like everything else is in shadow, and Max goes to her and she's like crawled up in the corner with the blood all around it. I feel like this is an Eren Mikasa backstory scene.
Levi.
With the 2 people on the ground. Levi?
Like young Levi with Kenny? Or no?
Yes, that is also, he's in that position, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, that I feel like that's like one of the best shots in the entire show of like just the framing of the shot of like the piercing like eye looking up, and she seems so like small and afraid and like.
Yep.
And it's funny because I think that's the same episode where she was so scary and stuff like that. What a complex character. What layers we've got here and Max there.
Yep.
I will say that this wasn't exactly my favorite Max stuff. Like if I was to do a ranking right now or after season 12 of my first watch, I don't know if she would be my second or third favorite character. We got to get to the Boston scenes that Ari's completely forgotten in the 4th season. My my goodness, the greatest stuff in this entire show. Eleanor's grandmother, and Ari doesn't know what I'm talking about right now. He's like, huh? I don't know. Greatest character in the fucking show. You got to drown the fucking cat, Ari. How do you not remember this monologue?
Yep. Who knows? Too long ago, too many years ago, 2018, you know? It's a different man, different country when I watch this.
Yeah.
Okay. So, guess what? We're still going through this timeline here. Episode 7. So she talks about her backstory, which is something I think you talked about last time. So she was basically in a terrible situation that she thought was normal, which was interesting. And she thought that she couldn't do anything about it, even if she didn't like it. And then Jack got her out of there. And then the interesting thing, which we touched on a little bit, is that she wonders if Jack shouldn't have saved her so that she could gain her own strength to get her out of there on her own.
Yeah, that's from something else too. What other story has that line?
Well, I don't know. Like... for me, it's Mikasa, but that's because of a video I made recently. But
maybe.
Yeah,
I feel like there's other examples too.
I'm sure there is.
Maybe I was thinking of Elite RE when I was like, what does this remind me of?
Yeah, what a video.
The all she's ever known thing is interesting. Like, she thought it was normal, and that's sort of the process she's going through with Jack, right? She's like, it's all I've ever known besides that was being with Jack, and she's still sort of dependent on a man. This kind of gets into a Preston Jacobs point. My God, wow. I can bring him up in any context. Where in his video, his Brienne video series, where he talks about the patriarchy in the world of Westeros and how the wildling civilization, even though how you marry a wildling girl is literally to capture her, is sort of the most progressive one because it arms women against the patriarchy. Because Ygritte is like, John asks her, like, what if like you're like captured by a terrible man or whatever? And Ygritte's like, well, then I'd just kill him in his sleep. And it sort of ties into the Anne situation here, where she's with a terrible man, but she didn't know she could do anything about it. Like the Anne of now would have just killed that dude when he was sleeping, because everybody's got to sleep at some point. And if you're sleeping right next to him because you're their abused wife or whatever, you could just kill him pretty easily. But it's sort of like, oh, you can have sort of autonomy to fight against the patriarchy, even if there is this terrible system. Like, it sort of makes men treat women better just because they know what's going to happen, because wildling girls are all trained and stuff, and they aren't just like noble ladies who don't know shit and would cry at the sight of blood or something. And sort of embodied a lot of those characteristics. I was thinking about that a lot when thinking about the Anne stuff. But the all she's ever known thing is definitely very interesting. Of like, and it's interesting the conclusion she comes to. So I think I should just let you continue through the episodes here before I comment on that.
All right. Well, episode 7, we get the Jacob Garrett stuff, who's the carpenter guy. Takes her to the room. She stands there for a very long time. And she does take a step, but then stops as soon as Adele walks in.
Yeah. This scene is so direct.
It is. It's so good just because of
the shot of her feet where she looks so small, and it's like, oh.
I just like how bold it is to just stay on that shot of her for so long. And just staying there in the music, and it's getting more like you can't hear the dialogue, and it's getting more and more like blurred,
like
or
she's
distorted
drowning
or whatever.
it out.
Yeah, drowned out.
There's so much that could be going into this scene. Like maybe she wants to know what it's like to sleep with somebody that isn't Jack after she's become independent, which I don't think she's ever done. This dude's nice. He's pretty from what I understand about pretty boys.
Yeah.
Boys?
Men.
He's nice. He's like charismatic. Like the other dude is like awful. He's like, just go upstairs and fuck her or something. And like there's even a shot of Anne like grimacing when he says that. It's like scary. It's like, oh, haha, that might be funny, but like it's also like scary. Like, ugh. Boys be raping. It's gross. And like there's so much into it. Like it's not entirely impossible that she doesn't just want to sleep with him, but she's also in a very weird state of mind. And the only potentially weird thing that the Jacob dude says, did I get his name right?
Yes, you did. Well done.
I'm a genius. Is at one point he says like, oh, and because Anne even asks, like one of the few things she says is like, why me or something. And he's like, oh, you're new or something.
And you seem nice.
That's a little creepy, I guess. Yeah, but then he says, you seem nice. And you're like, his book is all right. There's also a thing, and I think I mentioned this, that I originally thought in watching the last episode of season 1 that we weren't setting up a bisexuality storyline, that we were setting up an Anne being jealous of Max storyline, because she like walks past Max naked and looks at her and sort of pauses. And I think now it's supposed to be like, oh, she's like ogling her because she's into women and she's only just like realizing this. Initially I thought it was like, oh, she's like jealous and she doesn't think she's pretty because she's like a pirate girl or something. And I wondered if that tied into this scene somehow, or if like she wanted to feel attractive or something. Clearly like this bloke wanted her, so it was like evidence that she was desirable in some when she's like dressed up as like a normal girl. It could also be a gender thing of like she's tried to become a pirate just because she was thrust into that, and this could be her being like a very feminine job rather than a masculine job, and being a pirate and being a prostitute and things like that. There's like a million things going into like the potential motivations into this scene. It's this show be good, Ari.
And we never know. There's no it never gets revealed what it is. I think.
No.
Yeah, which is what makes it
the
interesting.
Ambiguity.
Yeah.
I think I said that in the I think I said this rather in the House of the Dragon thing, where I said in a recent thing we did where I said that I realized that I don't really like ambiguity in regards to plot events, but I do really like it in terms of like character motivation and things like that. And I think that's a big example of like that's the ambiguity I like there, of like, why is she doing this? It's like 15 different things.
And we get time to think about it when we're looking at her.
Yeah. And I feel like that's like how actual people make decisions. It's not really usually just one thingy. It's built on a bunch of bullshit in their past and everything like that. Actually tying this into Black Sails, the ambiguity that I don't really like is when you're fucking a little bit ambiguous about how this fucking show ends. Can we speak about that in 2 videos?
Yeah.
Don't have the fucking birds fly off like he might have shot Flint, you dumb fucks. Tell me if he was at the fucking mansion with Thomas, or if Silver killed him. I want to know. Actually, ambiguity like that I don't really like, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Maybe I'll like it this time.
Yeah.
Or I'm just allowed to believe that he's with Thomas, and that's exactly what I believe. Unlike this RE prick who has alluded to multiple times that he thinks that possibly he's not.
I just don't remember enough details to actually know. But
Well,
I've been
fucking
thinking
see,
about. I don't know if
you
this
gotta have
is.
the right
I don't know if this
opinion.
is worth a tangent, so you decide. But I've been thinking
I've
about
fucking gone
ambiguity
15
lately. You
tangents.
know, how like in Game of Thrones, because I've been looking up like some White Walker related stuff, and like if it never like, is it better to have mysteries in something answered or to not have them answered? Like, is it? I don't know. I don't think it's worth this tangent, but to me, that's just something I was thinking about lately.
It is an interesting thing. I think it can work sometimes and it can't work sometimes.
Yeah.
Even if I try to make a rule of like, I like character ambiguity, but not plot ambiguity. Like, I'm sure there's a plot ambiguity ending that I'd be like, man, that's fucking sick. Portrait of a Lady on Fire kind of has that. I don't know. Depends on your interpretation. So I guess it is ambiguous.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's like my favoriteest movie. But
all right.
Yeah.
So now.
Oh, they have the dumb dresses in that too. They literally have the Eleanor dress.
Oh, see, it's so realistic. Isn't realism great? Love it.
They're both from like the early 1700s, I think, too, or maybe late 1700s for Portrait. It's even green, like Eleanor's green dress.
It's crazy. Maybe it's the same prop. Who knows?
No, because again, it looks good in one and bad.
Yeah, it could be the cameras, right? You know. Anyway, so
and those guys are French, right? It's different.
Yeah, it's impossible. They can't have the same dress if they're French. And I want you to explain this to me, Kyle, because I was so confused when watching. I'm sure I missed something. But so Anne goes away after this scene with Jacob Garrett.
What the fuck did she go to? I agree.
Yeah, she goes away. She comes back, and we're meant to like understand what happened and where she went. And I was very confused.
So Max goes to her and is like, "I need a partner in this thingy to set up spies." Now I thought maybe she joined a different crew or something for like one thing, because she says like, "Oh, I landed and I came back." So I think she went to Port Royal to set up a spy network, and maybe she was going to stay there or then leave, or she joined a crew or something. I don't know.
That it's the most confusing thing. I guess the spy thing makes sense. I guess we'll see if it follows up anything.
I guess I need to know where is Port Royal? They bring this up all the time.
I have no
idea.
It's
just like a neighboring island.
I mean, yeah, it has to be somewhere.
Port Royal.
Yeah. I know it's an actual place now. Like they got a bunch of cruise ships there or whatever. But.
Well, Nassau is still a real place, right?
That's a question for a greater man than me. I got no idea.
I'm almost certain it is.
All right.
I feel like I knew what Nassau was before I thingy. Though it could just be from Uncharted 4, because that's a bunch of pirate bullshit too. And they bring up Henry Avery and Nassau and things like that.
Beautiful.
Nassau, Bahamas. It's just a place.
Genius.
Right? It's just a place.
So you know everything about geography. Look at you.
No, I just Googled it. You fucking idiot.
You have the tools to do the research.
Pretty.
Okay.
Did you know that did you know that this show was not shot in Nassau but shot in South Africa? Crazy times. Yeah. Have you really not listened to any cast interviews? And
no, not at all.
I've listened to a bunch.
I mean, I literally just
talking
binged
about how they get to spend 6 months in what is it fucking called? What did I just say? South Africa a year? And
wait, South Africa or South America?
South Africa. What did I say?
No, you said South Africa, but interesting.
Yeah, it's in South Africa. Cape Town. What a fun time.
Okay, I'm learning. Look at me learning stuff. The only thing I know is the VFX breakdown, because I found that interesting. And all the blind wave reactions. Okay, anyway, so
we have that in common.
So we got to the bottom of this Anne mystery where we're really certain what happened. So next up, apparently this is another question. Why? Oh, okay. So at the end, believe it or not, we're in the Jack and Max section. At the end of the season, Max wants to go and buy Eleanor's tavern, and she's willing to pay more for it. What do you think is going on there? Like, why?
No, she's passive aggressively wanting to be Eleanor because she's still mad at her.
So
it's a bunch of different. Is that she wants to be queen bitch?
Yeah,
it's great.
Is that what you think? Because I also think that's the case. Like, to me, there's two options. Yeah. One is that she wants to like. Well, I wonder if this is in line with what you were saying, which is like one of them is that she wants to kind of transcend Eleanor and like be better than her, or like kind of take over her position. And the other one is that she's trying to do right by her. Like now that she's been kidnapped and she's gone and all that.
I think she feels bad for Eleanor. I think there is a scene where she's like, Eleanor's gone, but she also, because Adele tells her, and then she also, but in that same moment where it's like, oh, maybe she's sad about that. She's also starting to be like, how much money can you scrounge up so I can buy this fucking place? I think there is even a shot in like season 3, or maybe when Eleanor comes back of like Max is like sitting in her chair and they have a conversation about it, and it's sort of like there's definitely still some sour grapes, I think, there. How did you feel when she cast you aside? What a line! It's still there, right? She's still mad about that.
All right, another ambiguity closed off here. Love it.
We hate ambiguity.
So
kill it
now.
Kill it with our brain.
The final thing in this Jack and Max section is just me saying that the Jack with the Jack scene with the captain like raiding the ship is just cool. So I don't know what we can talk about there, but it's just awesome. Like that cool. Scene is that captain is a great like interesting character.
Yes, he's like likable.
Yeah, he is, and he's like assertive in that situation, and he's like it's just interesting. That's all I could say, really. Charismatic. Yeah,
and he's like actually kind of being a nice dude.
Yeah, like it makes sense, you know. He has all the power, all the leverage in this situation. Yeah,
this shitty ship. But yeah, Jack's like flustered, like speech after he kills him is like great, and is there any man that will sit down here or whatever?
Yeah,
and
his plan to like release the crew and have him on his side, so it's just a great plan.
Yeah, he had to do something or he was fucked forever.
Yep,
and he pulled through.
All right.
We didn't talk about, and I wanted to talk about this more because I brought it out in my standout moments. The "I can't be your wife" because this is like the payoff for the whole thing. It's like them basically saying that they love each other, but it's kind of platonic now. And them both being okay with it is really cute.
Yeah.
Jack never gets a girlfriend though. Why? How come? Where's Jack's new girlfriend?
I thought you said they get a new girl at the end of the show or something.
Well, but she's like 14 and like
okay. I didn't remember that part. Okay. Jesus. I really don't remember.
She's definitely young, yeah.
Okay.
It's funny because her and Anne are making eyes at each other because Anne's figured out that she's a girl, but she doesn't tell anybody.
She's pretending... Oh, God, I don't remember this at all.
Pretending to be a boy, yeah.
I can't wait till we get there.
Literally the last scene of the show, and Ari doesn't remember it.
No. All right.
But yes. And I don't want to see it you're doing the shonen thing where at the end we just cut to them having kids without seeing any of the good stuff. Oh no.
Yep.
I don't like that point anymore, Ari. Why do you make me revitalize it?
Hey, it is what it is.
Does Jack have any scene with girls ever again? He like makes fun of Max?
Surely with Eleanor, right?
Does he ever have a scene with Eleanor again?
Well, he has,
almost.
No.
I don't remember any of them.
No, I don't know. Who knows? He's a strong, independent man. He doesn't.
Independent man. He don't need no woman.
Yeah, good on him. All right. So Kyle.
The only other main character woman is like Maddie, right?
Maddie?
It was Silver's girlfriend.
Oh yes. Okay. Yes. Did Blackbeard have any
Eleanor's
women?
Eleanor's grandmother.
Oh God, I can't wait to see her. I wonder if I'll recognize
her. I even have one of my wallpapers is Eleanor's grandmother getting out of the chariot in Boston. But I have a bunch of Black Sails wallpapers. I'm one of the pricks that has like 50. No, it's more than that. It's like 150 wallpapers.
Jesus.
They change every.
You know what my wallpaper is? You don't. I mean, you don't. But it's a black screen, literally. All right.
Well, the one on my laptop is just the portrait girl in the green dress.
Genius.
Man. We were just.
Whenever you mention.
Hold on, I minimized.
Yeah, go get the answer.
Oh, it might be green.
And what color are her eyes?
Green, but it's in black because it's a dark thingy, and she's on fire because she's the lady on fire in the portrait.
It's wild. It's wild.
What a title.
Okay, last point though. Not really a point. I just thought of it then. Whenever you mention Eleanor's grandmother, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
I always think of the Max's like former boss. Like that's the image that comes to my mind. I think of her as her grandmother. I don't know why. I'm like, oh yeah,
Madam.
Yeah, the madam. Yeah.
We didn't talk about her.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah. She had some cool scenes. It was a neat little reintroduction that one of the girls was still working for her, and that's cool. She had Charlotte's savings, and that's how she knew about the Urca plan. And she told that.
Yeah,
that was one of the things where I had to pause and be like, Eleanor knows this thing, and so then now Eleanor knows that they're going to get the Urca gold, and she's going to kill Max and stuff.
Yep.
She really did decide to kill Max.
Yeah.
This Eleanor girl, out of control.
All right, that's it.
That it for that section?
That's it for everything except for the miscellaneous notes. Yeah, so unless you want anything else you can think of.
My favorite part.
Yeah. So, believe it or not, the first point is the one you just said, which is that I definitely feel your point about the plot and character motivations being quite like complicated. I feel that way more so this season than last season. because like there's so many monologues in this show, and especially this season, where every character will have their like a monologue every episode. And it's just so hard to figure out like even the emotions behind a monologue sometimes, where I'm like, so what are they feeling here when they're conveying, like when they're saying all this? But yeah, it's just interesting. I align with you now also.
Again, another thing I was proven right.
Yeah, you're just like you're a messiah of the show. I can't believe it.
Should be doing this fucking thing by myself. Just speaking to myself.
Absolutely. Then you can edit it all and it'd be great.
No, please.
You get the thumbnail. All right, so the second miscellaneous point. Okay. So throughout the season, we get a bunch of maybe I don't remember if I mentioned this. But we get a bunch of shots of people climbing into a boat. Like it's really interesting. Like in episode 1, we get it when Flint's crew is Flint's crew. Yes. When they're coming on the warship and Flint's crew is like going to save Flint. And then we get it later on when Vane's men are going into Lowe's ship. We get the same thing where they're climbing up, and then right at the end we see Billy seeing Vane's men going onto their ship. That was probably the best one, where Billy's at the top and he's looking down.
He's on the top and he's seeing him.
So great.
We also see it when they're climbing the walls at the at Charlestown too.
The walls at
Charlestown. It's not a ship, but I guess.
Oh yes. That's probably the best one. Looking to the side and then swarmed by men, crazy.
Another Charlestown miscellaneous point is that they free the slaves and stuff while they're doing it. And I was like, cool.
Yeah, but it's a bit ambiguous. Was he trying to save them or use
then they
them?
just run into the fire. But it's like, was Flint being a nice boy or was he fucking?
Yeah, but that was great when the slaves like grab the guy and they
grab the dude. It's so good.
It's awesome.
There's more slave stuff a lot later.
Yes, absolutely there is. But that whole action scene at the end where they're running through Charlestown is so well done.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
How did this show have this budget and nobody watched it?
It's insane.
I have no idea.
Because they knew one day everyone will watch it, and here we are getting everyone to watch it.
Prophecy.
All right. So next is just me saying how great Randall and Silver are as a pair. Like with Randall being his spy and getting the information, great.
Yeah, it's great.
What else? So I love the speech that Miranda gives to Eleanor, whereas like every man has his torments. Like you might hear their echoes, but I know their names.
Oh, but I know.
I was there when they were born. I know what they whisper to him at night. It's just so great.
Fuck you, Eleanor.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite bits of dialogue, I guess.
Incredible monologue.
Yeah. So this one's interesting. So when it's a scene between Miranda and the creepy sex craved pastor guy. When they're outside and then Miranda like decides she's gonna leave and go to the actual Nassau like place. I don't know what you call it, the town. And she almost steps on some chickens.
Town?
Did you notice that? It's the most miscellaneous thing ever. There's like a bunch of chickens on the ground and she's so close to stepping on them, it freaks me out. Like I went and rewatched it a few times, like man, this freaks me out. What if she stepped on it?
I did not notice this. I do like in that scene, regardless of the chickens, her slowly figuring out like what was her name, and she's remembering Abigail. That
that's
another thing earlier
God,
that I thought was cute, but I didn't say.
Can you believe it?
Was that when she sees Abigail and like Abigail hugs her? That's cute.
Yeah. But okay, but on that point, on Abigail, Miranda remembering Abigail, I thought it was really interesting how when Flint, like when Miranda tells Flint, and he like takes a moment to think, and he's like, "Oh, Peter's daughter," and it's like as though no time has passed for him. It's like, "Oh yeah, my friend Peter, it's just his daughter." I really like the way they do that. They both
bring that up actually throughout the season, where they're like, "Oh, it doesn't feel like we've been like they both like we've been in Nassau for like 17 years or something."
Yeah.
And they both like go, how the fuck is that possible?
Yep.
We look exactly the same as we used to, huh?
It doesn't make any sense.
Actors,
except for Flint, he looks so different.
But yeah.
Anyway, so we got
God, all his outfits are so cool too. He's fucking hanging out with like the big long coats and shit.
Yep.
What a cool fella.
What a design. What a everything. What eye color. My goodness.
What a television program, as we say.
What a score! What CGI! What CGI is so impressive on this show.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
how the fuck did this show get made?
I don't know. I actually wonder, like, because I don't know how it would end, but like, what's the gap between seasons? Was it like a yearly thing? Was it more?
I think
or
it's
less?
just a year
like,
every time.
That's crazy.
Because I think it's like 2015 to 18, and that's 4 years for 4 seasons. I assume that the way it got funded was because it's a Showtime show. Oh no, it's a Stars show.
Yeah.
So maybe they had maybe it was on like, you know how Netflix just spends a shit ton of money on things because it just needs content. I assume it was like that sort of thing or something.
Yeah.
I know the other big Stars show is Spartacus, which I've never seen. It's notorious for having a lot of big dicks in it.
Wow. All right.
A lot of naked blokes, from what I understand. So it's a lot of nudity. It's just like black sails here. But I know that's the other big show from this time. I haven't watched it. I know it has like similar production values. I don't think people like it as much. But people definitely also compare that to Game of Thrones.
Wow, just like Attack on Titan. My God.
Indeed.
All right. So, Flint. Oh, Flint. I also don't remember if we talked about this, but Flint has this great moment where he's talking about why people vote for things, and it just comes down to because it makes them feel good. Like he has this whole thing where it's like, oh, a man spitting on this other man when he's eating food or something, and that just is some equal with everything I've done for this for these crew, and it's so great.
Hornigold's speech there. I did bring that up. I was going to say I did bring that up. I remember saying like, and when a man asks you for his trust, such a good one. Like Hornigold, actor, so many.
But all the steam is lost in that speech when the gold is revealed to not be there.
They say the gold is missing.
It is interesting how in that situation usually you wouldn't think that anyone could hear them talk about the gold, but then they could hear them. It took me out of it. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But I guess it's intentional by Silver's part. But I wrote, boy, are there a lot of monologues in this show. I was just so impressed. every scene, every episode, there's multiple monologues, which is unlike any other show I've seen.
It's great. This is actually something the normies made fun of the show for.
Those damn normies. Can't believe it.
One of the things that annoyed everybody about it.
They just hate everything good about the show.
It was like an internet meme. They'd be like, and then he does a monologue and everybody's mind changes, and they would like make fun of that as a concept. I remember them doing that in one of the very first episodes, and I was like, oh no.
Great.
It only gets worse from here.
Yeah.
It's like bad internet criticism. Somebody made fun of a thing one time, so it must be bad.
And that's the normies. There you go. So
I like the normies, right? Leave them alone.
Yeah, that is true. The only two reaction channels I watch are Blind Wave and the normies, pretty much. I mean, there are other small ones. Anyway, so another miscellaneous point. There's not that many to go. Is that this is something that always bothered me. Like, even I remember distinctly the first time I watched this, and it also bothered me now. Which is the first shot we get when Flint is on trial, and it's like a high angle shot, and you see the whole like town basically. And to me, it just looks so small scale, and like it's very like it's the one bad shot that I've seen where I'm like, oh, this looks like an empty set or something.
Yeah, there are other shots from like the ship that make it look small, and then there's one shot when I think it's in episode 9 that makes it look massive.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess they were a little inconsistent with that sometimes.
Yeah, well, to me, there's only one shot that looks small, but but the rest look good. But yeah, I guess, yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think it only looks the wide shots from the ship only look small from that one shot later that makes it look massive.
Right. Yep.
I guess it's the massive shot that's the problem.
Yep.
Though I assume it would be pretty massive. But yeah, who cares?
Who cares? All right. Next is that throwing rocks at Miranda's corpse is such like a visceral, like, terrible thing. I'm like, these monsters, kill them all.
It wasn't rocks, it was like lettuce and stuff, right?
Oh, was it? I thought it was rocks. But you know what? My eyes were seeing red. I was like, yeah, I guess it makes sense.
This is what you might be thinking of.
And then she almost stepped on the chickens. And yeah. That's the same spot, I'm telling you, where she stepped on the chickens. Second last miscellaneous point here, which is that I think it's, oh god, I actually don't remember who said this. I think it was Flint. How everyone is a monster to someone. Which we did talk about. I remember you said it earlier, but to me, I bring it up just because as soon as I heard that, I'm like, yeah, everyone is a slave to something. Like, it just sounds the exact same. Like,
oh yeah,
did that not trigger to you at all when you heard it? Like,
I did feel like, oh yeah, I've definitely heard the monster part before, but maybe I was talking about everything around the monster part that I heard before.
Like, it's in no way is it related. Like, everyone is a monster to something, and everyone is a slave to something. Like, it's anyway, just a nice semantic, not semantic. Yeah, whatever. All right.
I didn't think we talked about the Vane monologue too much. The one in the square about how, like, remember those of you that live to see tomorrow, and then everybody like is like, what are you talking about? And then he's like, know that you had a choice or something, and then he puts his hands up.
Yep.
And come. Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff.
Perfect. And the last miscellaneous note that I've got is about how it's interesting how last season was a lot of character stuff with maybe one action scene that I remember pretty well. But this season has a lot of like a lot of character stuff as well, but a lot more like epic moments and like great configurations of characters to make it really interesting in a bunch of scenes. More so than last season. But yeah.
There might just be characters are more established, but there's definitely more big action thingies.
But I think the action is only interesting because of the configuration of characters in them. Which I don't know. It's well done this season.
It's really, the show hasn't been that long, but like with the Silver like Max stuff, that is like payoff of like a character relationship that feels like they've been apart for so long.
Yeah.
Even though we're only in like that's like the 13th episode of the show. That's like the first season of The Sopranos is 13 episodes.
Crazy.
It is, and Black Sails isn't the longest show. Like all those other TV shows, I think all of the other TV shows I've seen besides like You are longer than Black Sails. And it is, I don't know, when like in season 8 Mad Men something calls back to a relationship from like season 1, it's like, oh, that's fucking sick.
Yep.
It's been so long and stuff. For them to recreate that so shortly, it's fucking sick.
What an achievement. This is a magnum opus. So what do you rate this season?
Probably a big fat fucking 10, I would say.
Perfect. All right.
But yes, it was so good.
All right. Well, now is your last chance to say anything else you want about season 2 before we start season 3 and get the video out next week after whoever's listening right now. I don't know why I'm explaining this. You'll have known because this is the second part and the first. Anyway, go ahead. Say anything.
You're hearing this, we'll probably be done.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully, if we stay on a schedule.
Yes.
I think all I want to do is like, oh, what's happening in season 3? It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, you want to make predictions?
It's got the whole. But yeah, let's make predictions. We got Blackbeard showing up. Ari's very excited.
Yep, can't wait. I remember his first scene. It's like Eleanor, you don't see him properly until like a little bit into it.
Yeah. 3 blokes that are like his wife's sisters or his wife's brothers or something, and they're like, man, you're just leaving our wife out there. Our sister.
Yeah.
Fuck me. They're not happy, and then he kills them. That's not cool. But then he shows up and he's like a old sweetheart. He's also he's not an Eleanor simp, but he's a simp for Eleanor, like Vane is for Vane for him for Vane. He's a Vane simp, is what I'm trying to say.
He is.
Remember the last part of the season is like, but he failed to account for me because he killed Vane, and Blackbeard's not happy about that.
Oh god, I can feel the visceral emotions right now.
As excited as Ari is for Blackbeard, I'm really excited for Woods Rogers and Eleanor to kiss.
All right.
What happens in season 3? I remember her and Anne. They all have the gold. Oh, the last thing I wanted to bring up was that there's way too much gold in that hold. But it's such a great shot of like, we've been hearing about the Earth gold for so long to see it all, and it's all like inhuman, shiny and stuff. Like it wouldn't be that shiny, but it's just like, oh, what a moment!
It is. It's great. They do it justice by exaggerating it.
Beginning of season 3 where they're all on the same side is so cool, and like I think the first scene is no, because I've said the first scene 3 times, so this would be the third scene after Blackbeard and then Flint raiding the village. Is like Vane and Jack are walking around the new Nassau and like man, we got this going and the Navy's gonna show up and we're gonna do this to fuck them up, and it's like a cool little thingy, and Max is there and everything. But also, they can't get anybody to fix the fort because everybody wants to be paid too much because of all the money they got.
Oh,
inflation,
capitalism. All right.
But, season 3. Can't wait. But that's I think that's where we're ending.
Yep, we'll see you next week. And if you are listening and you haven't seen Black Sails, go watch Black Sails.
And watch my YouTube video about it.
Absolutely. It's a great video, guys. It's got my recommendation. All right. Bye.